Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. This is the Fantasy and Frames Sunday pregame show. It is week 10. It is time to get ready for the fantasy football playoffs. It's time for that push. We're ready. We're ready to get you ready. Let's get it. Oh, yes. We will be having members of the Fantasy and Frames family joining us, as well as some members from the extended family. Before we dive too much into introducing everybody, Jonathan, thank you for joining us. Nate, thank you for joining us. Let's dive directly into this 9:30 game. We have Indy at New England, or versus New England, I guess, in Germany. First time they played in Frankfurt in a few years, but we're doing it. Indianapolis is a dog here. Down by 2 already. It's 2-0 New England. It's 9 o'clock, but the New England Patriots are favored by 2, 42.5 over under. Nate, who's playing this game and who is not? Because I think there's like 93% of the NFL is on the injury list this week.
Dude, it's a deep one. And this has, pretty wide ranging, I'd say, implications on the game. If you start with the Patriots, at linebacker, Juwan Bentley, who had got one limited practice sandwiched between a couple did not practices. It's been limited all week, and he's inactive today. Mac Wilson probably will jump into a little heavier role there. Trent Brown is inactive at offensive tackle. J.C. Jackson at corner, and then Devontae Parker is out with a concussion as well. J.C. Jackson's is a personal issue, not related to actually injury. On the Indianapolis side, Juju Brents, rookie corner, excellent rookie corner, inactive with a quad injury. And then Drew Ogletree, tight end, one of their many tight ends, is inactive with a foot injury.
Yeah, there was a report this morning from Rap Sheet that Josh Downs will play.
Yep.
So that's a good sign. Jonathan, real quick, we've talked about in the past with this timeshare in that running back core of New England. I'm sorry, of Indianapolis. Are we done with this timeshare now that it looks like JT is finally getting to that 74-75% share?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those things where the Green rises at the top. He is clearly the better running back. I think it's only obvious that as he came back from that injury, that he was going to slowly see more and more work. I mean, like Zach Moss was really good in those games that Taylor missed. So it was kind of going to be obvious that he would still keep a bit of a workload. But yeah, I think the workload that we've seen the last couple of weeks is kind of what we should expect going forward. I think Moss will have some flex value some weeks, but I don't think we should ever kind of expect the usage that we saw prior to Taylor coming back and that week or two when he did come back.
Well, you say he has some flex value, but I mean, the flex value, you are relying 100% on him getting a goal line touch and getting into the end zone at this point, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to be in matchups I haven't seen their schedule, but if they've got anything where it's they're playing someone like the Panthers or the Cardinals or where they're going to be heavy favorites and there's going to be a positive game script, I think he could still see a decent amount of touches. But yeah, I think it is going to be Taylor leading this line for the rest of the way.
Well, just to give you real quick, they've got they've got a bye next week. They've got Tampa, Tennessee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and Vegas.
Right.
So
like Vegas is one where you might be able to flex him, but yeah, other than that, it's going to be desperation stuff if you're putting him in your lineup.
Nate, real quick, with this game starting at 9:30, what IDP players are we having? Are the absolute must starts in this game if we have to play them?
Yeah, well, you want to play a number of players in regard, maybe not a number, a few. Most notably, Zaire Franklin, who had been questionable all week, just up until about an hour ago. No one knew if he was going to play. And this happened last week. He went out. Saguna Lobi, a relative unknown, came in, played the majority. Played all the snaps at linebacker, and that's what was playing and going into this week. It's tough sledding for linebacker on a bye week when you have such notable players out. At the defensive line for Indy, really, Kwity Paye has been up and down. You have to be in the deeper leagues and like defensive tackle leagues. DeForest Buckner is always someone that you're going to want to play. And then at defensive back, Julian Blackman has just been solid across the board. As Jorge and I have talked about numerous times, his box snaps line up with everybody. And so it's just, play after play, he's involved, especially against a New England team that doesn't move the ball downfield all that well. And then Kenny Moore, who surprisingly for many is the defensive back 1 overall in the season. Now, I don't expect back-to-back, multiple pick sixes, but 2 years ago, he was the number 1 cornerback or number 1 defensive back. Last year, he fell down to like 22 and was somewhat forgotten. And so now all of a sudden he's back up. Huge week last week, could have the same week this week. On New England with Juwan Bentley, that's kind of big because many people were relying on his tackle floor, him being gone. There's not a ton of linebackers on the waiver wire in some of the deeper leagues. For instance, in the Kings Classic IDP, I went with Mack Wilson, which is going to line up and take the majority of the snaps, which sucks. Mack Wilson's not the best linebacker, but 10 to about a 12% tackle rate. You could do worse. Jelani Tavai is another linebacker that's going to step in and see some rules. And Kyle Duggar. I know that has pretty much just rambled through every player on both sides of the ball, but there's, those are some notable players I'm going to play. And pass rush for New England is tricky. It's hard to say anybody with certainty.
Yeah. The other side of the ball there, Mac Jones, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the last 3 games. In his first 6 games, it was 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It seems like the only wide receiver he has to go to is Demario Douglas right now. With Parker being ruled out, it's going to be a Demario Douglas, the only wide receiver that's actually playing in the game. Where is he in your, I guess, are you able to start him in a wide receiver 3 position or flex position, or is he higher than that for you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think he's a really good flex play today. I was just looking at his stats from the last few weeks. He's had at least 6 targets over the last 3 weeks, in each of the last 3 weeks, and has hit 50 yards in 2 of those 3. So yeah, without Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster just looks kind of a shell of the player that we saw a few years ago. Yeah, I think he's a really, really solid flex play today, especially with the number of injuries that we've got around the league.
All right, this game starts in about 15 minutes or so. On the offensive side of the ball, Jonathan, who is a must sit in this game that would normally be a start?
That would be a start. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's anyone like really obvious that you would normally start. I mean, like Taylor, Stevenson, Douglas, Pittman, Downs are all starts for me. I think, yeah, maybe Zeke is just someone that I just don't have a lot of faith in. I know that's not an obvious start, but I think all of the obvious guys, I think you are playing here.
Welcome in there, Jorge. How are you this morning?
Doing well. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing good. Real quick, since you want to jump in on this game right here, I want to ask you about Ramondre Stevenson. He's been a okay, whatever player all year long. Last week, 87 yards with a touchdown. Is he an automatic plug-in going up against this Indianapolis Colts team?
Great question. So it comes down to really like what's your better option, right? And I hate to be like cliche person that says that, but at this point, if I'd feel more comfortable starting him, hoping for upside. I look at it like this: if it was just like a DFS play, I'd look at this from like I'm chasing upside. Whereas if I'm looking at this from like a normal league, I'm like, I want floor from Ramondre. I'm not really worried about Ezekiel Elliott at all, nor do I think anybody should be, taking touches away. But the Patriots, they're only really good at one thing, and that's not passing the ball. And I shouldn't say they're that great at running the ball either. But if I had to trust an offensive situation for the Patriots, I would trust the running game. Now, I will say that the addition of Demario Douglas and how well he's been playing and can kind of give you that threat to kind of like open up the defenses a little bit more could actually benefit Ramondre in this matchup this week.
Nate,
I think,
anything else? Go ahead,
Oh,
Jonathan.
sorry. I was just going to quickly say on Stevenson, the positive thing over the last few weeks has been the usage of the passing game. He's had 6 targets in 3 of the last 4. I think that other game he had 4 targets. So I think like that's the floor that you're seeing, which is fairly positive.
Nate, anything else to add to this game before we move on?
No, I mean, I guess, you can look at Hunter Henry if you're at tight end. I mean, he's been exceptional. He's exceptional is fair to say for a tight end position when you can have any tight end that has multiple tight end 1 weeks, which is a rarity nowadays, which is sad to say. But I mean, he's been top 12, 4 times on the season so far. So with minimal options, and I think Demario Douglas has a tough matchup against Kenny Moore for the majority of the game. So I think that you'll see more targets focused into Hunter Henry's direction than anybody else on the pass catching side.
Jorge, anything else you want to add for this game?
No, I guess I would like to throw in Jabril Peppers if this is going to be a heavy script for the Colts there. You mentioned Josh Downs earlier. Michael Pittman has been fairly inefficient. Josh Downs has been the wide receiver that's really been taking off for the Colts, but he's been dealing with his injury situation. So that makes me wonder if they're going to emphasize more of Jonathan Taylor in the running game. And if that's the case, then you could probably see Jabril Peppers join Kyle Duggar down in the box. But I'd feel more comfortable starting Duggar over Peppers for IDP defensive back purposes.
There is your 9:30 game, Indianapolis at New England. Before we go any further into this jam-packed 3 hours, remember to head over to fantasyandframes.com. Read the recent articles. Nate's dropped an article already on the IDP stuff. Start, sit, waiver wires, all the rankings, all of that kind of good stuff over there. Got a question in the chat. Malcolm wants to know Heineke or Levis just for today. Jonathan.
I'm going Levis. I feel really good about Will Levis today. We've seen how exciting that Titans offense has been the last 2 weeks. Compared to first few weeks of the year. And I just think the upside that you get with Levis is something that I want to buy into. We kind of know what Heineke is. We've seen in the last couple of weeks. The Buccaneers are not a good pass defense. They've got injuries today in the secondary. We saw what Stroud did to them last week, so I feel kind of good about Levis this week.
Nate, you with the Levis side on this as well?
Yeah, Tampa Bay secondary's pretty banged up and non-existent. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I'm with that as well, and I'm sure Jorge is off the Heineke train now. That now that he's not in Washington, but
no, I mean, if you're asking me who would I rather have as my quarterback, Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke, it'd be Taylor Heineke, and that's an automatic. But for this question, yeah, it's Will Levis. You look at fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, the Buccaneers are allowing the third most, so it's a smash, I think. And we talk about starts and sits content. Tyler put out his start and sit article yesterday. I put out a little short over on TikTok, which if you haven't been following on TikTok, do that, folks. Where he was mentioning, you look at the average depth of target for the quarterbacks for the Tennessee Titans, they've been pushing the ball downfield more and more, especially Will Levis in a short sample size. So this could definitely be a good game for him this week.
Yeah, I don't expect Will Levis to throw for 5 touchdowns, although he could against this Tampa Bay D, just like C.J. Stroud did last week. But yeah, I see this being a huge game for Will Levis there. All right, let's move in. And good morning, Albert. I do see you in the chat. I apologize for putting your comment up while Nate was talking and rambling on about his Colts D that he was going to play today. Let's move over to the Houston-Cincinnati game. Houston is favored by 6.5, over under 47. Interesting to me, this CJ Stroud, after what we saw last week, again, talking about him versus Tampa, 5 touchdowns. But what he did at the end of the game last week with less than a minute left, driving them down 75 yards, game-winning touchdown. How much should we temper the expectations for CJ Stroud going into this game against Cincinnati? Also, Cincinnati gives up the 13th most points to the quarterback position, which I find pretty interesting as well, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think he is a rookie. I think we should remember that
Is he a
there are
rookie,
going to
though?
be peak.
Yes,
He's not playing like a rookie.
True. I mean, like his like, because I was going to say there are peaks and troughs, and the troughs are still like better than a lot of quarterbacks. But I think that we're not going to get, what was it, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns every week. I think he is obviously a start today, but mainly because I think there's a good potential this is a shootout, and it does end up being a high scoring game. But I think kind of going forward, we should be a little bit careful not to quite expect those levels every single week.
Nate, who is out this week for Houston and Cincinnati?
Man, how much time you got? Yeah, it's a lot. For Houston, there's huge names. Nico Collins is a killer. He's out for the game. The Dameon Pierce is another inactive again. Jimmy Ward at safety's out, and Henry To'oTo'o. So you have notable pieces across every major area for Houston. And from the Tampa side, not quite as
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Sorry.
We don't want to. As a Tampa fan, I do not want that game.
No, exactly. I know. Yeah, you sure? Everybody's out. They sat out in humility. They waved the white flag and they said, no, thank you. Cincinnati side does have huge implications as well. T. Higgins, of course, is out. Sam Hubbard on the defensive line is out. And that's it right now. Josh.
Jamar Chase is 50-50 and trending to not play as well.
See, I don't think I would think the opposite. I would think that he's trending to play because I think everything is favored towards him playing from what I've seen. And again, we're reading cryptic information, and that's just how crazy it is that you can have one complete opposite opinion and feeling that I have. And like, I'm more than confident that he's going to play, but there's nothing to back up either one of our sentiments other than, well, they're going to give him a shot. His back is blah. He's going to do this. He could be out there. Could he be a decoy? He's going to play. It's questionable. That's the type of narrative, unfortunately, we're at. So if you're listening, good luck. Who knows?
That's probably going to be an absolute game time decision. Yeah,
but it'd be one thing if it was like limited practice to start the week and then DNPs for the rest of the week. I mean, he started with a did not practice on Wednesday. He is getting limited practices. I feel like if we had to worry, we would have been informed more so from beat reporters that, oh my God, this is a real serious chance he's not playing versus like, yeah. But we'll see.
Well, let's assume that he doesn't play. I just want to put it out there because there is that possibility. Sure. Okay. Without him, without T. Higgins.
All the targets.
Who steps up?
You can run on Houston. And I think that's been Joe Mixon's forte is inefficient, but volume-based upside each week. And I think that could be one thing. I know a lot of people want to jump on the Trenton Irwin name. I think Tyler Boyd is obviously – the big question I would have is, do you think there's a pivot to, any of the tight ends, like with relative high upside, or is it just the same old, you're touchdown dependent?
Well, we have this one game every single year, it seems like, for Mixon to go 40 plus fantasy points. This just seems like it's all lining up without Higgins, without Chase, if that's the case, for Mixon to make it happen. Nico Collins, like you said, is out. Is this the Dell Schultz game, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they kind of joint led the team in targets last week. I think they both had 11 or something like that. So they're seeing the majority of the work. I think they're both really good plays again today in what should hopefully be quite a high scoring matchup.
Good morning. Real quick, I want to get to this comment because he's only got about 5 minutes. Mo Diesel, half PPR, Gabe Davis or Josh Downs rest of season. Let's start with you, Jorge.
Josh Downs been more consistent. Yeah, there's an injury situation, but I don't think it's a lingering one. I don't anticipate it being a rest of season lingering one. Gabe Davis, boomer bust. You know what you're getting, but Josh Downs, hands down.
I see what you did there, Nate.
Yeah, I agree. Despite the way he ended his argument or reasoning.
The only thing that would have been funnier there is if that would have actually come out right onto the camera and you just had this drip coming down the camera of Jorge's drink.
Yes.
Jonathan, you're on the hands down. I mean, Josh Downs train there as well.
I am hands down picking Josh Downs.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Jorge's argument with Gabe Davis being a boomer bust guy and high ceiling but very, very low floor compared to what Josh Downs is giving you. Let's move over to the IDP side with Houston and Cincinnati. Jorge, what is the players that we are looking at for the Cincinnati side of the ball that we are playing, of course, and then the ones that we are leaving off because of this this vaunted Houston passing attack?
Let me start with that comment. I don't think you fade IDP because of an overactive opponent in the offense. If anything, that gives you more opportunity, right?
Yep.
And so you want as much opportunity as you can for your players, both on offense and for defense. So with that being said, you have Trey Hendrickson, defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals. You have Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson at linebacker, Dax Hill, defensive back. Nate, we were talking about the rookie defensive end here for Cincinnati, whose name is escaping me on Shoot the Gap.
Miles Murphy.
Miles Murphy,
yep.
And how coming out of college, one of the things they liked about him was that the fact that he is very good at both the run defense as well as pass rushing. So seeing what he does in the absence of Sam Hubbard is an interesting thing to pay attention to, for your people in your IDP Dynasty leagues. He's definitely somebody, if he has not been drafted, which I wouldn't anticipate that being the case, but if he is available in your league's waiver wire, again, maybe pick him up, stash him, put him in a taxi squad spot or what have you, and pay attention to this game because, contract situations with Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, I believe, are coming up shortly, whether it's this year or the end of the following year. So they may want to see what they have in Miles Murphy. So pay attention to that on the Cincinnati side of the ball. Nate, what do you got for us on the other side here?
Yeah, the across the defensive line, this is one thing Cincinnati's been pretty good against allowing a ton of points to the defensive line. But I think that's on the basis of the fact that Cincinnati has a tendency to pass more than run. I think this game might be the reverse script. We might see more runs, so it might make me feel more comfortable with Will Anderson or Jonathan Grenard, because Cincinnati has protected Burrow better as of late, which is a good thing. Bad for IDP, good for Joe Burrow. But at linebacker, that's where it's tricky, man, because each week it seems like we're supposed to see Blake Cashman have 100% of snaps. Then he drops down to 80%. And Denzel Perryman and Christian Harris both see increased snaps. And now Henry Tuatua out, so you think the snap should be higher. I don't know if I want to trust any of them relatively confidently. I think Cashman is a safe enough LB3 play, but outside of that, not too comfortable. Jalen Petrie, I'm good with now. We're seeing more box snaps. The addition of Derek Stingley back this week is very big, because that's going to focus, I think, less of the passes to at least that one side. Maybe give us a little idea as far as if Petrie's going to see that heads up or that advanced running game this week, which I think lifts his tackle floor for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Stingley being back. If you're in a position specific league, is he somebody that you are plugging right in, or because they don't throw the ball to that side as much?
I don't. That's the way I got to be honest. I don't know. I would love to tell you if they were going to line up, and without seeing Stingley play that much this year, I don't know if he's going to shadow. If he were to shadow Jamar Chase this week, I think that would be, if Jamar Chase plays, of course, I think that could be huge, because you have to assume here's both these two, one coming back, one a little banged up. You hope Chase isn't a decoy, but it could lead to a pretty significant, I would say, amount of targets and potential tackles. I think that's something definitely to pay attention to. Let's earmark this, Jorge, and we'll come back and discuss this if Stingley was targeted and how that could impact going forward.
Yeah, I like that. I like that very, very, very much. Jonathan, anything else you want to add on the offensive side or even on the IDP side for this game, Houston at Cincinnati?
No, don't think so. I'm really looking forward to this game. Is the only thing. I do really hope that Chase is playing, because I really want to see Stroud and Burrow go head to head.
Yeah, this is the highest projection on the slate at 47. Jorge, anything else you want to add with this game?
No, sir.
All right, then we shall move on. New Orleans at Minnesota. Minnesota favored by 340.5 over under. Nate, start us off with the injuries.
Sure. Yeah. The Vikings side, of course, we saw that Jaron Hall was out last week, which led to the Josh Dobbs. I don't know what the right adjective is. Resurrection for the Minnesota Vikings. Hopeful. It was, what's that?
His heroics.
Heroics is, yes. It was an optimism from the Purple Faithful. And then, of course, we know that Justin Jefferson is not going to play, but that's minimal for Minnesota, which is a positive. On the New Orleans side, again, that's really minimal as well. Kendre Miller is about the only person of what I would consider significance that is out, and that's not really that significant. So, relatively healthy game.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs, the rocket scientist himself. Do you expect Josh Dobbs to
have eyebrows? No.
You're so wrong. You're so wrong.
I'm sorry.
Jonathan, do you expect Josh Dobbs to be able to learn this playbook in the 2 weeks or week and a half that he's been there? And the New Orleans defense is not that bad of a defense when it comes down to it. And without Justin Jefferson, you got to figure that Lattimore is going to be right there with Addison for most of the game. Do they have KJ Osborne back yet? I don't even know. But what do you expect out of Josh Dobbs in this game?
Yeah, I mean, like, the positive is that he might know everyone's name now, so that that's there's progress there. Last week was just so incredible. It was just like all of the stuff about Kevin O'Connell basically teaching him the plays in his ear as he's calling them. It's just really astounding. He's not someone that I'm not looking to play him this week. He was incredible last week, but this is a much tougher test. I think the big question here is can he support multiple skill position players in this game? Addison and Hockenson, I'm still more than happy to play, because I think the usage will be there. With Jefferson out, they are still going to command a significant number of targets. I think, maybe not quite to the level that we saw Dobbs last week, but I think, after a week, I mean, I think it's we can hope that it's at least enough to support those two guys.
It's looking like KJ Osborne will not play, according to reports right now.
Yeah, and Rigaroo in the chat said he is a game time decision, so we shall see there. But like Jorge said, he's trending to not play. Jorge, this Vikings backfield is an absolute mess now with Akers going down, another Achilles on the other side. Can you expect Ty Chandler to be involved in today's game with Madison? Or
No.
Madison, as the guys on fourth and frames like to call him?
No, I think you're going to get a healthy dose of Alexander Madison. You're down JJ, you're down now Osborne. You have Jordan Addison, who should be getting Lattimore treatment probably, and then you have Brandon Powell as your probably other wide receiver for the Vikings. So, and then of course you have Hawkinson. So for me, if I'm Minnesota, I'm running the ball and trying to just grind this out in an ugly fashion. And I think Alexander Madison is in line for a heavy workload today.
Nate, is this a good matchup for Chris Olave going up against this Minnesota secondary?
Yeah, the matchup right now. So Byron Murphy is most likely who he will go head to head with. Maybe a Caleb Evans on occasion. Both have allowed over 100 passing rating to wide receivers. Or to the quarterbacks when coverage. I think he's been a great matchup every week, contrary to what we've seen. If you just look, and I know the underlying metrics don't always read the story. Him and Carr just don't always seem to be on the same page. And that's the one deficit is he's got his underneath work. Where's Olave fit into the scheme? But you look at it and it's like, despite the fact he's a wide receiver 29 on the season, he has 40% air yard share, 25% target share. He leads wide receivers in deep targets, and he's been heavily targeted in the red zone the last couple of weeks. I mean, I think each week is that breakout week waiting to happen. I think this is the week now, especially, I don't know. Michael Thomas is playing, even though he was arrested. So I don't know what the implication of that will be on his playing time, if that will have any effect whatsoever. But I like Chris Olave this week.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Michael Thomas situation, but I wasn't sure if he was even if he was going to play or not. Jonathan, how much do we trust Taysom Hill to continue to repeat his recent performances?
Yeah, I guess we're doing the Taysom Hill thing again. I to be honest, I kind of trust it. Because it's not just it's like 1 week and then he disappears for a few weeks and then he's come back. It's been quite consistent for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it's to me it's that usage in the red zone, and the tight end position is always a bit of a hellscape. We constantly kind of talk about how the lack of depth at tight end. And I don't think outside of those top options, you're really going to see anyone with as much upside as Taysom Hill because of all the different ways that they use him, in the lower red zone. You don't know if he's going to, he could pass it, he could run it in, or he could catch it. So yeah, I think given the amount of upside that he has, I think he's a really good player at tight end every week.
Yeah. Nate, go ahead and fill us in on the IDP side of the ball let's start with the Saints, I guess.
Yeah, sure. And actually, one little thing on the Taysom Hill. As Taysom Hill's been involved, I worry myself a little bit about Alvin Kamara's upside each week. I think that's something we didn't get a chance to really, I'm intrigued to hear if you guys have a differing opinion, but we've seen his usage over the last couple of weeks now be dwindled down, more touchdown dependent in week 8 when he had 2 of them. But we're seeing those targets cut in half over the last 2 weeks compared to the previous 4, and the targets cut in more than half over the same time. Are you guys worried at all about Kamara or not?
Here's an interesting stat for you on Kamara, and I was interesting in the fact that he missed the first 3 games with the suspension, but right now he is still the number 1 target getter amongst running backs, even though he's been cut in half. It's just still 3 games less. I know a lot of it goes to the 2 games where he received 14 targets each,
right? Yeah,
but it's still missed 3 games, still number 1 as far as that stat is concerned. Jonathan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do have a little bit of concern. I think the upside is going to be cut slightly. He's someone that I think, look, you're going to have to be really quite deep to be able to bench him. That's the thing. But I just don't think that we can really expect that that level of upside that we've potentially kind of known with Kamara. Not, I mean, obviously not just this year, but in previous years, because of all of the different options that they have in the red zone. Because obviously they've got Taysom Hill, as we just mentioned, but also Jamal Williams. We saw what he did last year. They will want to get him involved. But yeah, you're gonna have to be really deep at running back to be able to bench him, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll get back to the IDP side. Sorry for that little sidetrack thing.
100% fine. Go ahead.
So Minnesota, shockingly, the offensive line has been a significant strength. Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill on the tackles have been as good as any tackles in football. And I don't think they get talked about enough because people just don't talk about tackles outside of the big names. But they've done a really good job. So I'm downgrading Cameron Jordan and Carl Granderson both in this matchup. I think that Demario Davis is still a fine, LB2, borderline LB3. Pete Werner is just, too inefficient. Not the biggest fan of his efficiency week in and week out. I know there's some leagues you're going to have to play him, but in some of the shallower leagues, I think people are going to be able to pivot away pretty easily. At safety, really, for the Saints, it's like I like Alante Taylor here week in and week out because from a nickel and slot coverage, sometimes he's around the ball more often. Tackle floor is elevated, but this week I think it's maybe Paulson Adebo. I feel like that's going to be his strength this week. On the Minnesota side, though, this is where it's a little tricky because you have a New Orleans Saints offense that we've seen, despite the Chris Olave talk that I had just recently, they don't go too deep all the time. They're definitely short, but it's Rashid Shaheed the occasional time. So everything more underneath. And Minnesota plays 3 safeties now. They have 1 linebacker. They play 3 safeties. All 3 safeties are plays. It's weird, but all 3, Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus, and Cameron Bynum are good plays. And Jordan Hicks at the linebacker, and then Danielle Hunter. Short of that, it's tricky to have any absolute must starts.
Did you go over the New Orleans side as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yep, that was the Granderson and Cameron Jordan kind of downgraded a little bit.
Anything else you want to add to this game, Jonathan?
One thing that I should have added to the show sheet is Rashid Shaheed, potentially a flex play in this. I think if you're struggling, if you need someone as a spot start, he's had some huge blow up games. So I think he's a decent desperation flex if you need one.
Yeah, especially with the bye weeks of the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Eagles, which we all know there are plenty of wide receivers in those 4 teams that are not playing this week. That playing that floor with Shaheed may be the right play there. I do not hate that. All right, we are flying through these games. Green Bay at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is favored by 3.5. 39 is the over under. Nate, start us off with the injuries.
Sure. I think he's still maybe doubtful, but Quay Walker is not going to play. I can't see any way that he's going to. Pretty significant loss there. But Jair Alexander is in the same boat. I don't think they haven't been ruled out officially from what I see, but I think both of them will not play. Short of that, there's a few questionable tags, but none of which really stand out. The only one that has really impact could be Rudy Ford, that calf injury with limited practices all week. If they test it today and it flares up, I could see that being a situation, but not much else in the way of the Green Bay side. For Pittsburgh, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's the big name. He's out, hamstring, and nobody else of, I'd say, real significance that I'm totally concerned with. I think about Cameron Hayward has me a little wishy-washy. The old did not practice meat between the limited practice sandwich or buns. And so when you have that, it always makes you worried a little bit. It's Thursday, just, the veterans kind of relaxed day. Cameron Hayward just came back from injury, but we'll see. I think he's going to play, but it's worth monitoring.
I love how you have, Jorge put out that you know, master of transition. You have absolutely taken the buffet that you were having on Wednesday and brought that to this Sunday game. So I do appreciate that. I got a quick question about Quay Walker. If Quay Walker he's listed as doubtful right now,
Yeah.
or at least what I'm seeing. If he does not play,
Mhm.
who's the guy that in that Green Bay linebacking core that you want to plug in?
Isaiah McDuffie. Yeah, Devondre Campbell's a start, but Isaiah McDuffie's filled in great. I mean, exceptional tackle rate every game that he's played, and when he's filled in both for Campbell and for Quay now, he's been, gosh, I don't have it directly in front of me, but I would go out on a limb and say I would suspect that he's been an LB, 2 in those games, maybe an LB 3. He's been really good. I mean, to the point where very disrespected in a huge bye week game that makes sense for him to play. And he just let's see, 14 and a half, 12 and a half, and 15 are the three scores that he's put up when he's played significant snaps. So pretty solid.
Before we get too much further into this game, Mark and Souls has a quick question about the last game. Is it Dobbs or Carr for you as a start, Jonathan?
This is really tough. I think I'm going Carr because of the matchup. I think I'm going Carr.
Nate?
Yeah, I'm going to go Carr as well. I don't love it, just especially because we've seen Taysom Hill vulture so many scoring opportunities that I don't want to see a Derek Carr 280-yard, no touchdown game, and they score 30 points against Minnesota. And that's a kind of a screwed up likely scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Is it Hollywood or Deontay at flex in a full PPR for Art? I'll start with you, Nate.
I'm going with Deontay. I mean, we've seen really since he's come back, he's been the guy. I mean, it's from a usage perspective. I expected him to kind of come in and get slow to it, but I mean, he's had a 31.5 target rate since he's returned. 2.3 yards per route run. Air yards are almost 50% of the team. And what did he do last week? He finally got over the 10-year stretch. I was literally so happy for the guy, mostly because I think I have him rostered on 15 teams. But it was such, you could see, as they said, the relief just leave his body, that weight that was on his shoulders. It was great. And I'm glad because he had one opportunity prior to that. And I was when they didn't go his way, and then another fingertip. So there was so many opportunities. I'm glad he got that. You agree, Deontay?
Yeah, I think so. I was just going to say, it reminded me of when Jacoby Myers.
Yes, that's what I was getting. Yeah.
I can't remember how long it was, but he just looked like the happiest man on earth, and everyone around him was so happy for him. It reminded me of that. But yeah, I completely agree. Deontay's has been brilliant, really consistent since he's come back. Something like 23 targets over the last 2 weeks, and I think he's seen at least 75 yards in the last 3 games. So yeah, that consistency is something that it's something that we should be buying into.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Over the last 3 games, 20 of 29, 254 yards, and of course that touchdown. But out of those 3 games, 79 yards was the lowest amount of yardage, and that was 3 weeks ago. I believe that there is definitely a connection with him and Kenny Pickett that is absolutely growing. It may have taken him a little too long to get there, but I think it is absolutely Deontay. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit later on when we get to the 4:00 games with Arizona. But Kyler Murray, the expectations, I think we need to tamper them down just a little bit, with it first week back. Getting back to the Green Bay Pittsburgh game, it seems like should be a pretty good matchup for the running game of Pittsburgh. Is it Jalen Warren? Is it Najee Harris? Jonathan?
So I think, first of all, I think you can start either. I think we're in a position where either because of the way that this is split, I am kind of comfortable starting either of them. For this, I'm probably going Najee over Warren, just because I feel like this is going to be a bit of a slow, turgid defensive game. I think you're kind of, yeah, I think it's probably more likely that Najee's going to get that, get that goal line work. So yeah, so I think I'm going Najee, but I think both are in play. Because I also think that Pittsburgh wins this game potentially quite convincingly. I kind of like them in the at 3.5. The way that Green Bay's been playing. So I think there's going to be I think we'll probably see a positive game script for them as well.
Blasphemy against your own team, but rightfully so. You hit the nail on the head with one thing too, and I add to your point about the red zone. In the last 3 weeks, Najee has 8 red zone opportunities compared to Jalen Warren's 2. So really good point about the red zone usage.
I'm like, say it quietly, but Najee has looked a little bit better over the last 2 weeks. last couple of weeks.
How gross is it that, like, if someone were to make me an offer that made sense, I would actually almost be okay having, I don't want to say it, I don't want this to be clip, Gator, don't you dare do it. Copyright.
45-36, Jorge. 45-36.
Yeah.
You want me to play some copyright music over the, over the background?
I'm gonna
play the Beatles or something.
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah, exactly. Just go straight to Disney, Michael Jackson, do something that people are, Taylor Swift, whatever. We already flagged for Swift, I'm sure. But it's bad that in a world I'm not hating having like Alexander Madison and Najee Harris as like my 2 running backs going forward, just because like the usage and the volume, it's like those 2 and Joe Mixon are so similar in that it's just the gross kind of plotting. What you're never going to see is that explosive Jalen Warren play, that explosive, I can't say Cam Akers play or anybody else from Minnesota necessarily, but it's, yeah, I didn't think I'd be here, but I wouldn't hate it. He's Najee's up to a wide receiver or to a running back 3 now. He's 36. He's had 3 straight top 24 finishes. 13, 22, and 12 over the last 3. So it's gross, but it is what it is.
I mean, Jalen Warren is right in front of him when it comes to that. So,
absolutely, I love it. I like Jalen Warren more than Najee, but I think it's it's like if it was a standard league, it wouldn't be close for me. But in half and full point, I would rather have Jalen Warren over Najee. I think.
I guess that's probably a fair statement. Would you have Warren or Singletary in a full PPR, Nate?
Man, so I keep going back and forth on this with Singletary because the usage and the volume should be there, no doubt. And it makes me want to trust Singletary. But we saw the volume last week and it turned into, nothing. And so I think I'm going to go Warren this week. I like Singletary, but I feel like their floors are the same. I think Jalen Warren's floor might be just a tad higher, but his ceiling is exponentially higher, if you ask me.
Jonathan, I'll send it to you next, but I also want you to add in, is there when it comes to the Cincinnati defense, are they the better of the 2, comparing Cincinnati to Green Bay, the better of the 2 run stoppers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Green Bay, they've been marginally better over the last couple of weeks, but it's still not something that I still don't trust that Green Bay defense. That run defense has been bad for the past 2-3 years. So yeah, if I'm betting on one of these rushing attacks, it's definitely Pittsburgh. I think also with Houston, I think we've got to look at the you've got to look at the pass rate that they've been playing at as well, and how much are they actually going to be leaning on the run rather than leaning on CJ Stroud, and then the equivalent in Pittsburgh, and how much they're going to be leaning on the run compared to leaning on Kenny Pickett against what is Green Bay are much better against the pass than they are against the run. So yeah, so I think it's really close, but I think I'm leaning Warren.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Warren as well in this, just, knowing how that Houston offense has just moved the ball down the field through the passing game through CJ Stroud and that arm. Speaking of Stroud, I want to jump on this one real quick. Stroud or Lamar, are we as not necessarily analysts, but as fantasy players, are we buying too much into the Stroud hype over Lamar? Because I've seen this question multiple times over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Stroud, of course, being the rookie, but Lamar is still Lamar, right, Nate?
Yeah, he's Lamar, but again, like recency wise, we're not a long memory species. Unfortunately, sometimes we look at what we've seen, and you look at Lamar, and it's like we see that those stretches from like weeks 2 through 5 or 2 through 4, where it was 22, 28, 24, 3 top 10 finishes, then 27 finish or top, within a 20th overall, then, 2 more top 10s, and then a 30 finish, and then an 18. And so you have this wave of inconsistency, and you've just seen Stroud over the last month put up, last week, more importantly than anything. But Cleveland's defense is no joke. I mean, if there's one area that gives, I'd say, Stroud the advantage, is I trust the ability to score on Cincinnati much more than I do Cleveland. But I have a hard time sitting Lamar. I mean, it's a challenge to sit someone where the upside is just so dynamic.
Yeah. And I think like the last couple of weeks, you've seen Gus Edwards get quite a few rushing touchdowns within the 5. They could have easily gone to Lamar, and then it's suddenly this isn't even a question because Lamar, as you just said, has suddenly scored a lot more points in that alternate universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm still going Lamar here. I mean, he's been playing really well as well, just generally. I think there is a bounce back for Lamar in terms of fantasy production coming. Whether it's this week or the future, we'll see. But I think I'm still sticking with Lamar because, as you said, that upside is just astronomical every week.
Yeah, the rushing for Lamar for me is what puts it over the top. I mean, it is what it is. Yes, Gus Edwards, like you said, has gotten the touchdowns, but of course he should be getting those touchdowns. Lamar will go and vulture some of those eventually. Ball glove blueprint. Pick one PPR flex, Madison or Brian Robinson Jr. And speaking of flexing, we're going to bring in the fantasy homeboy himself, Preston Evans. So, Preston, I will send this question to you first. Pick one PPR flex, Alexander Madison, Brian Robinson. Preston, can you hear me? All right, then we will send it over to you, Nate.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Madison. I mean, my love fest has already started. Might as well keep gushing about the guy, even though, I still don't love him. I think that there's a better chance that it's Antonio Gibson more involved in this game. I can see a case where they can get behind, and it could be Gibson, shockingly.
I don't think that's a shocking thing. If you go to the YouTube, you can see where we put out a video where Gibson is probably somebody that is going to be, John McGlynn put it out, is going to be a very viable player for the next week or two, maybe even going further into the fantasy playoffs. Jonathan, Alexander Madison, Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I'm going Madison just because of that workload that we know he's going to get. Brian Robinson has been good in those positive game scripts. Don't think it's one that we'll see today. So yeah, I think I'm going Madison.
Preston, can you hear us now?
Yeah, hey you guys. I can't stay on long. I'm going to the Duke game. How y'all doing? Taking my daughter to the Duke basketball game. Just checking on y'all, checking in.
Well, good. Well, y'all go have fun with that. While you're here, though, Alexander Madison, Brian Robinson, pick one for a PPR flex.
Alexander Madison. even though I don't like neither back, but I'll go with Alexander Madison this week. Now that Akers is out the way, he's gonna get a lot of the work now.
I don't know if Akers is out of the way on purpose, though. No.
Well,
Unfortunately.
Yeah, because I liked Akers before the first Achilles injury. I really liked Akers. It's a shame what's happening to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
And it was the other Achilles, wasn't it? So now it's been both.
Both.
That just seemed. I'm sorry. I know that those guys make it not look as painful as it sounds, but that was a weird, like, unrealistic fear that I had. Is like, you ever watched any of the movies back in the day where the person gets their Achilles slit when they try to slow the person down, like they're hiding under the bed? Like, I think that's going to happen. I don't know why I think that's going to happen, but the idea of that is terrifying to me. And so, not that I'm protecting, as they would say with Wu-Tang, protect your neck. I'm protecting my calves at all time with my shoe, but it seems ridiculous that is a fear of mine. So keep my calves and my Achilles in your thoughts and prayers, please.
Jeez. Now we know why you sleep in an Iron Man suit. That way they can't cut your Achilles. Good Lord, what kind of movies are you watching, Nate?
I live with Carrie. It's a constant fear that at some point she might have said enough's enough. Here's your basketball career, Nate.
Yep. Blink twice if you say.
Exactly.
Well, all right, guys.
Who's Duke playing today,
fellas? Yeah, I've been listening on my headset.
Who is Duke playing today, Preston?
Well, they're having kind of like an exhibition game going on. Duke against the women's USA team. My daughter, she plays AU basketball. So the team got together. We're gonna take the girls to the Duke game.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man.
I'm wearing Duke colors because I'm really not a Duke fan, but
good. You just moved back up my rank. I was worried there for a second.
No, I'm not a Duke fan.
You just, like, 90% of America buy Duke clothes on a whim because why not, right?
I didn't even want. I'm disgusted putting this sweatshirt.
That's the answer.
It matches your eyes. So, hey, Preston, great job last week with the pie bet. I thought that was very awesome.
Yes, sir.
Great job.
Thanks, man. I had to own up to it. It took a long time to get that sweet potato off me.
I figured you're still getting some crumbs out the beard a little bit. You notice Chris didn't want any pie bet with me against the Chiefs, did he? He's been awful quiet, hadn't he?
Yeah, he won't.
Yeah, exactly. Humble pie is what he's got.
All right, Preston, go enjoy the game. Give your daughter a lot of love. Tell her to shoot some hoops with the girls and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, y'all too.
Later, man.
All right, guys, let's dive back into the Green Bay at Pittsburgh. How worried should we be about Pickens with his recent fantasy performances, Nate?
I think the connection, like you said earlier, where you saw that between Pickett and Deontay, is quite the opposite with Pickens. I mean, we've seen Pickens come in, and granted, last week, this conversation probably wouldn't even be happening if I think he had the one touchdown called back, or no, he didn't get the foot down. That's what it was. It was close. And with that, his numbers would have just been okay. People would have said, yeah, you know what? Catches weren't there. Yards was but at least he got the touchdown. And I think people would move on. But now it's a 13% target share on an offense that just isn't dynamic enough to support a 13% target share. Or 20% first read share. Both of those two, he's wide receiver 4 or 5 for me, probably going forward.
Wide receiver 4 or 5 in the Pittsburgh offense, or
no, wide receiver 4 or 5 over. Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, I don't know too many other wide receivers on Pittsburgh. I can't, as much as I want to say Allen Robinson. Let's not.
You're not dropping him that far, huh?
I had so much hope in Allen Robinson, the slot this year, and being there, resurgence. But yeah, I can't get that much.
Jonathan, I want you to use some of your bias of being a Green Bay fan when we talk about this, but the improvement that has happened in that Green Bay running game, with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, can you still trust Aaron Jones as the lead back, or is AJ going to be getting those I'm going to call it thievery of the the touchdowns?
Yeah, it made me sad to see, like, on Green Bay Twitter, to see a load of people saying hashtag free Aaron Jones, like we're back in 2018. Like, I thought we'd got past this. But like we saw last week, he had I noted it down, was it something like 20? Was it 20 touches or something like that? 20 rushes and then 4 receptions. That is the kind of usage that we should be seeing from Aaron Jones. He's quite clearly the best skill position player that they've got. There's so much inexperience on that team. Jordan Love is clearly not playing at his best, and so you should be relying on your veterans like Aaron Jones to relieve some of the work from Love. It's the sensible thing to do. So on that point, yes, I would be trusting Jones going forward. Also, because I think if we're seeing him getting 6 targets, that means that he is going to be kind of game script proof, and because they're not going to be blowing out teams like they did last week. So I think of any of the Green Bay skill position players, I think he's the one that you can trust. I think I was going to say with Dillon, he will see some work, and you hope he's going to fall into the end zone, but I think that's kind of it with Dillon.
Do you feel, again, like I said, I want your biases in this. Do you feel like Aaron Jones getting 55% of the snaps is enough, or should he be getting that 60, 65, 70% like we want JT to be having?
Yeah, it should, like, theoretically it should be higher. I know that they will mix in a load of different packages and whatever, but yeah, he should. I think if he's seeing 24 touches a game, then that's kind of what that's what I'm happy with. I think as much as you can do to kind of relieve Jordan Love of putting everything on his shoulders, I think is the main thing here.
With everything Jonathan just said about this running game, Nate, knowing that, yes, they do need to have a little bit more comfort for Jordan Love, hand the ball off, short passing route, short screens, whatever. What the hell do we do with Christian Watson when it comes to fantasy?
Leave him on the bench. I just can't. I can't see a situation that I feel really, really comfortable in a flex spot with this many explosive players on a bye. I just don't see. I don't love it. Let's put it that way, because there is case to be made that you look at, if you said, all right, a player is going to have 17% target share, person's going to have 40 something percent air yard share. Those two metrics would say, oh, that's an easy wide receiver 2, 3. But then when you look at the offense, and Jonathan's not knocking against it, I've lost more. Like, I was not really high on Jordan Love coming in, but I thought maybe this will be an opportunity. Lean on Aaron Jones, allow they have 3 better than average wide receivers in Watson, Dobbs, and Jaden Reed. I think that of all the 3 there, if I'm looking at a matchup based, I think that Jaden Reed is probably the one that I would be most comfortable, which is crazy if he were to play the entire game. But we saw that last week. He didn't even play 40% of the snaps. And so, but the slot position against Pittsburgh would be the area that you could exploit, but not if you don't get enough snaps. It's a dichotomy of chaos with this team.
Yeah, I kind of find it a bit bizarre that Reed isn't getting more work, because, like, we've seen the issues that have happened with this offense, and I kind of think, like, just get the ball into the hands of your best players. Like, why are you not doing more to, getting more screens to Christian Watson, just getting him on a slant? We saw last year, even, the game against the Eagles, when when Jordan Love came in relief, and, Watson ran something like 60 yards for a touchdown. I don't quite understand what is happening here, but I think, yeah, it's really hard to trust any of those wide receivers. I think Musgrave is someone that at tight end, everyone's got a really low floor, but he's someone that has somewhat of a ceiling. And yes, it'll be a bit, it will spike because he's a rookie. But I think Musgrave is someone that you can throw in there if you're desperate.
Nate, go ahead and give us the IDP side of this game. Green Bay at Pittsburgh again. Pittsburgh favored by 339 is the over-under.
Yeah, the pass rush for Green Bay should be led by Rashawn Gary. I think Preston Smith has some decent upside this week as well. I mean, we've seen Pittsburgh offensive line at times be weak, allowing for a formidable pass rush like Rashawn Gary and like Preston Smith to have. Gary is a stud, and he's had some tough weeks, and a lot of times it's matchup based, and they do their best to double him, which could lead to Preston Smith. But I'm comfortable with both of them. Devondre Campbell, I'm really comfortable starting. I talked on Isaiah McDuffie earlier, and I think that's a solid plug and play type linebacker. Especially if you had Quay Walker like I did or do, is you have no real choice other than to look at snap share from a linebacker. And I think McDuffie could play enough, especially if you have people like, if Jair Alexander, Rudy Ford, all these guys are banged up, Quay Walker, you're going to need snaps filled by somebody. Jonathan Owens steps in a more of a box role, I think, this week if Rudy Ford is out. And that could pay dividends, especially against a team that's going to be so potentially run heavy in Pittsburgh. On the Pittsburgh side, unless we don't want to talk about how good TJ Watt and them are, because there's some good ones. But Jorge's not here to have me go off on Elandon Roberts, so I'll leave that for another day. But it is TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, probably the best duo in football. The Green Bay line. How have you thought the Green Bay line has played this year, Jonathan?
It's been really disappointing because it's been one of their strengths for the past few years, and I think obviously Bakhtiari going down kind of just messes everything else up. But it's been really disappointing. So many silly penalties. It's just been really sloppy, and it's been something that Green Bay hasn't really seen that much over the last couple of years. That is something that is quite new. They've always, for the last few years, they have drafted really, really well in the mid to late rounds and developed these guys, and there just hasn't been this level of sloppiness. So it is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, and that's what leads to like the Highsmith and TJ Watt. They're going to be great against anybody, but Jordan Love, again, you look at why he's been so poor in my eyes, is the poor guy doesn't have time to throw the ball either. And it's a huge separation. His percentages when he's got a clean pocket versus pressure is a pretty big gap, but you're also talking of a deflated floor for both. Neither one are exceptionally high, but he has no chance. And especially this week, this pass rush is formidable. It's scary. If he can get it off over the middle, that's where he has an opportunity, because no Minkah Fitzpatrick up, near the box, or even playing safe where he can pick off some of those errant throws or pressured throws. But that's where the Quan Alexander, Landon Roberts, because there's no Cole Holcomb, so you have this split. I believe it's going to be Quan Alexander who's going to play the majority of the snaps. He's supposed to wear the green dot. He can step in. He finished off last week's game with that interception. Landon Roberts has been the more efficient tackler. So if he sees enough snaps, he could be viable. But I think what you're finding is if you have two linebackers that you're not 100% certain on, that means you have no linebackers that you should be certain on, because I don't trust the snap share completely. So if you're desperate, I would say probably go Quan, just because the snaps should be there more likely. But outside of that, it's not so great. And Keanu Neal, hopefully he's not on the field. He's the only good tackle he made was on Cole Holcomb, and that was when he kicked his leg in half. So I'm out on Keanu Neal. Oh, Cameron Hayward, we talked about earlier. Hopefully he does play.
Start 3 in a full PPR: Keenan Allen, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Drake London, Tank Dell. Start with you, Jonathan.
Man, I want to start all 5.
No, exactly.
Is there any way you can start all of these guys?
You are the luckiest man alive that you have these 5 options this week, when like I'm scrambling around looking at like
exactly.
This morning I added Kyle Phillips, and I was like relatively happy about that. So
it's sad. It's sad when Jonathan gets up about 6 hours before any of us because he's across the pond, and he's sitting there, like, oh my God, yes, here we go. We got Kyle Phillips, baby. Let's go. Oh, you got Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, Drake London.
Yeah. So I think I'm going Allen. I think I'm going Allen, Wilson, and Deontay. I think they're the ones I think are safest, and I think Allen definitely. I think he has the highest upside of all of them. I think that's where I'm going.
I'm right there with definitely Keenan Allen. He's a top 5 play for me this week. The next, like, it goes almost. It's in that. Look at that. My 17, 18, and 19 wide receivers are Wilson, Deontay, and Tank Dell. I could move actually Deontay up 2 spots, so I'm going to go Deontay. And then it's Wilson or Dell. And it's like, man,
that's a really tough one.
That's because it's like, man, his 25 to 30% target share is almost a guaranteed. And the same thing could be said for Tank Dell, but it could very easily be, 20%, and he, peppers Dalton Schultz with targets. Noah Brown gets involved more. I'm going to lean Wilson with you just because I feel like I trust the targets a little bit more. But I even love Drake London too. That's hard too.
I was just going to ask.
Love Drake London
with Heineke being the quarterback now. Yeah. Just looking at the last. Let's go after the last 3 weeks or so. Washington, he got 12 targets. The last 2 weeks, he's got 7 targets each. Mm-hmm. He in that 55-yard range, except for that week where he got the 12 targets, he went over 120. But I mean, this matchup with Arizona, what's going on, Dave? How are we doing this morning?
What's happening, fellas?
The matchup with Arizona seems,
juicy.
Yeah, and it's
very much so.
I agree with Jonathan. Why can't we start all of these guys quicks?
I'm almost mad. I want to give him the wrong information for having such a good team. My vindictive side of me says do that.
The problem is he's got these guys, and then his running backs and his quarterbacks are probably like Zach Wilson and what's the other guy in New York now?
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, DeVito. And then running back wise, he's probably got, I don't know, Pollard and Brian Robinson, something along, he's loaded up at wide receiver here. But Dave, pick 3 of these guys: Keenan Allen, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Drake London, or Tank Dell.
So it's got obviously Keenan Allen is going to be in there. I like Tank Dell this week. Obviously, no Nico Collins. I don't trust Deontay Johnson. The last time he scored a touchdown was before man discovered fire. So
no, he scored one.
He scored one last week.
Yeah, it was his first one since I think Ben Roethlisberger was actually the last one to throw a TD. So look, I just don't want that inconsistency. Give me Garrett Wilson. He's the only guy there worth throwing the ball to. Zach Wilson loves him. Also, I'm watching this game. Breaking news, guys: the Patriots suck. Looks like the power of sausage and sauerkraut isn't enough to give them enough firepower to win. But
I know. We're heartbroken.
Bill Belichick got an extension this morning, so now he doesn't just not care about your fantasy team; he doesn't care about your real life football team.
Just doesn't care about me at all.
No, it does not. Adding to it, Quicks has Herbert, Kenneth Walker, Gibbs, and Brian Robinson in a 12-man league.
Yeah,
I
suck
hate
on
you
that,
now.
Gator.
I hate you
Herbert?
now.
Khalil Herbert?
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin
Okay.
Herbert.
Fair way to look at that. But
Yeah.
he mentioned his quarterback being Zach Wilson.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And in the true Michael Jordan meme, he goes, and I took offense to that. And here's my team. So here you go.
Good on you, K-Quicks. Good on you.
Damn right.
Good on you. All right, where are we at? We are moving on to Tennessee at Tampa Bay, over under of 39. Tampa is actually favored in this game by 2.5. I'm guessing that's because Tampa's at home, because they don't have a defense, at least a back five or back six. Secondary is not very much. We kind of talked about this at the very beginning with one of the very first questions with Will Levis. How much do you trust Will Levis today? Let's start with Dave, because we already know Jonathan trusts him.
Yeah, I like him. He had one, I wouldn't even call it an off game, threw for nearly 300 yards. He needed a little bit more help from his team, but as far as a serviceable quarterback, there is, he's a decent option anyway. So I'm happy firing up Will Levis. If you got other options, don't get me wrong, like Jared Goff, would I take him for sure? But he's probably a back end QB1.
Yeah, I love that take. The other thing, this past week, one of our guys, John McGlynn, called it the "don't worry about the bipolarism" from week 1 to week 2 in Will Levis when it comes to his stats. Yeah, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in his first week, no touchdowns, 1 interception last week against Pittsburgh. There was a lot of questions against that Pittsburgh D for that team. But let's get into the injuries for this game, Nate.
Yeah, so Tennessee, we know Treylon Burks had that scary play last week. He's out. The offensive line for Tennessee, if there's one reason that I'm a little concerned with Will Levis, is for the offensive line. Depth at the offensive line has already been an issue for Tennessee. Now they don't have Nicholas Petit-Frere, who wasn't a good tackle, but he was their starting tackle. You have Daniel Brunskill, which was depth. He's out. And then really on the defensive side is Sean Murphy-Bunting, which is, more significant for Tampa than it is anything for Tennessee. On the Tampa side, the only real person out right now is just the backup corner and Josh Hayes. There's some questionable tags across the board, like we said earlier, but especially which is benefiting Will Levis is the secondary. Carlton Davis is questionable with the toe. He had a couple did not practices. Jamel Dean still in concussion protocol, but I think he's going to play. I think he got a full practice in Friday and should be good to go. And then defensive line like Kalijah Cansey was banged up, but the good positive is that Trey Palmer, who was questionable, didn't practice, did get a full practice in Friday. So he's good to go. Maybe we'll talk about Trey Palmer here in a little bit. I
always love it when the injuries are for these giant men, these silly things like a pinky or a toe. It's like this 260-pound man has been stopped by a little toe.
I don't get it started, Dave, because Carrie's going to hear you saying it if she's listening. She hates turf toe. She thinks that that's the sissiest thing. And I go, you don't understand how painful it is. She goes, and then it's always, oh, my toe. And she'll bend her toe backwards and be like, look, because that's what turf toe is caused. She's like, this is what causes turf toe. No turf toe. So give it in 3 weeks or something when we're having this same conversation, or Dave, when we see you in January, maybe when she's in a walking boot with turf toe, please make fun of her relentlessly, and we'll see how it is. But I don't think she'll have turf toe.
Yeah, I'm on Carrie's side on this, because I think your whole vision of turf toe is that monster under the bed that's going to slice your Achilles as well. So, Levis, is it Will Levis? Is it Deshaun Watson, or is it Geno Smith for you today, Jonathan?
This is really tough. To me, it's between Levis and Geno. I'm willing to give Geno Smith one more week just because this is a really good matchup. if you need upside, I think it might be one of these where if you need upside, if you're looking at this matchup and you it looks as though you might be behind your win percentage is it 40%, 35, then I might go Levis just because of the upside. But I think Gino is going to be a safer option.
Nate?
Yeah, I'm going to go Gino. I have all three pretty close, a lot closer than I expected to have them. But with the lack of pass rush that Washington has now, without Chase Young, without Montez Sweat, that interior push, I don't think will be enough to get Gino off his game. And I think that we're going to see more of a passing attack, especially because, I mean, Kenneth Walker, what do you have, 9 touches last week? So I don't think the running game is something that they are even putting necessarily as an importance. So I'm going to lean Gino, and maybe I'm wrong. Dave?
This is super close. Look, I agree with you. Gino had Jonathan. He had one off game last week. He's been pretty good all year. I think, gun to my head, I'm taking Gino.
Yeah, I think I'm taking Gino here as well, just because of the multitude of weapons that he has with JSN, DK, Tyler Lockett, and then you look at Levis, and the weapons are one weapon, 2 weapons if you count in Henry. But speaking of that one outside weapon, who else besides DeAndre Swift steps up for Will Levis today, Jonathan?
This is tough because I feel as though there will be enough targets to go around, and so there will be someone. It's about making that right pick. I think potentially Chigo Okonkwo. I think he's seen some targets. I'm not sure of the upside, but I think he could see targets. I think Kyle Phillips is a desperation flex. I think he saw something like 5 targets last week, 5-6 targets. So I think Kyle Phillips is fine if you're really desperate. I think they're the 2 that I can see.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to bring up Kyle Phillips, being that you added him because the likes of Keenan Allen, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's got K Griggs has got all the good players.
No wonder you had to go get Kyle.
Now, in fairness, did you see K Griggs in the chat?
Yep,
has mentioned that. Go ahead, I'll let you.
Yep. No, I was just going to wait to bring this up, but he's got a tight end question. Do you feel comfortable starting Hockenson with the questionable tag, or should he go McBride? He traded away ETN and Pittman to build this team. So, I mean, I don't hate what you traded away to get what you got when it comes down to it. But, are you comfortable starting Hockenson with the questionable tag, or should he go McBride? Let's start with you, Dave.
The questionable tag just makes me quiver in my soul. I don't know what I'm getting out of a questionable guy. Are you getting a decoy? Are you getting someone who's going to get 11 targets? There's just too many unknowns. That Trey McBride is obviously one of the best. I mean, he's the second best receiving option right now for Arizona behind Hollywood Brown. So I'm probably going to go with McBride, to be honest. And is Murray playing today?
Yes.
Yeah. So Murray with the second best receiving option. I just feel safer with McBride. And you got a decent enough team that the other team should carry. So, go with a safe option there, right?
Yeah, I think the upside play is absolutely McBride. I mean, they're playing Atlanta, who gives up, I want to say it's like the 7th, 8th most points to tight ends. And with Kyler being back, I think there could be a good bit of checkdowns. Just get Kyler comfortable. I don't believe Connor is going to play. I think he'll be back next week. Is that right?
No, I think he's playing.
I think
he was playing.
Going to be there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I still think that McBride is still going to be able to get the correct volume of targets. And like Dave said, with the rest of your team, I'm fine going with McBride here and, getting that 7-8 point floor, but the possibility of having that 19-20 point ceiling.
If Hockenson had a questionable tag because of a soft tissue or something to do with his lower body, I would probably feel a little more concerned. I mean, granted, it's rib injuries
or
are
a toe.
nasty. Or a toe. Well, if it's a toe, he's not even playing. There's no question. Well, that's straight doubtful.
The worst
out.
injury in history.
Exactly. That's IR most
Cut off
likely.
your arm or get a stub toe.
Ronnie Lott style. Cut that toe off. You'll be wibbly wobbly. But it's a rib injury, and so it's probably a pain tolerance thing. And short of Greg Williams coming back and putting Bounty Gate on Hawkinson's ribs, I still think I would go Hawkinson, but I got to tell you, I think McBride is a great play. If there's a great pivot to have, of course, it's stupid K Quicks with all these talent. And I would rather have McBride over half the wide receivers that I have to start right now. But
no doubt. Oh, standard league, Deontay or Ridley, Jonathan.
Ooh, this is interesting because it's standard. If this was PPR, then it's very easily Deontay for me. I think I'm probably still going Deontay just because we know of the work. I think it's probably safer than Ridley. I mean, Ridley had a really good bounce back game last week, but I think Deontay is still the safer play there.
Dave?
This is what do you need? Do you need a safe floor or do you need high upside? If your team needs that boom play, then I'm going Ridley because he can go for 3 touchdowns and 210 yards, right? He's that kind of a player. If you just need a safe floor and your other team should carry, I'm probably going to go Deontay. He's probably going to get you 5 or 6 catches for 80 yards, maybe a touchdown.
As Jonathan just pointed out, Ridley did have a very good game last week, but it's only the first time since week 1 that he received double-digit targets. Nate, standard league, Deontay or Ridley?
I'm going to go Deontay, and I know the case for Calvin Ridley, like Dave pointed out, is exceptional. Deontay, since his return in standard scoring, is the wide receiver 10. So, I mean, granted, there's teams that have had buys, but he's averaging 10 per game in standard over the last 3 weeks with just the 1 touchdown. So I'm not going to bank on another touchdown. Let's not get too carried away. We got, him a little bit of time to let that decompress and all the excitement to kind of wash away.
For the year. He's done
he is.
In his contract, he said over and under 0.5 touchdowns, so he's good.
Perfect. Then if you played the over under of 0.5 touchdowns, which I'm sure it was less than that amongst the books, you would have you'd have some good money right now. We could get that protective boot for us all for when we have that ultimate foot injury that we're all going to suffer from here in the next couple of days.
It's going to put everybody out on IR.
Everyone's going to wake up with turf toe.
No.
Corporate desk jobs.
This one here from Blurpy seems pretty easy to me. The first question, at least. But I Dave, is it Kyler or is it T-Law today?
I think I'm going to stick with the known commodity in T-Law. We just don't know what Kyler's going to do, if he's going to ease into it. I really want a safer play, especially quarterback. You just cannot risk it. Those are your guaranteed points.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona is home against Atlanta. Jacksonville is home with San Francisco coming in. So, Jonathan, is it Kyler or is it T-Law for you?
This is really close. I think with Kyler, I kind of want to wait a week just to see how he is. I think it's a risk. I mean, he's coming back from quite a serious injury, and when we think about what made Kyler Murray great in fantasy, it was his rushing. Mm-hmm. And so how much coming back from this injury within just over a year, how much are they actually going to trust him on the ground? Is my concern.
It's actually under. It's only been 335 days.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So it's under a year. I mean, he's superhuman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that rushing upside is kind of is what's made him special in fantasy, and I do have concerns about how much they'll allow him to run, at least like over the first couple of weeks. So yeah, I think I'm still going Lawrence.
Yeah, and I also worry, Gator, a little bit about Kyler Murray's hands, because if you've ever played Call of Duty long enough, you get that sore thumb, and it really starts to impact your grip on the ball. And I worry that fumble could be an issue. I don't know if Call of Duty came out.
No, it did.
Yet,
It actually just did.
Well, I knew it was supposed to be released. I didn't know if that coincided. It coincided ironically, but I wasn't sure if it did or if that was this coming up week. So I want to be factually correct before I give my deep dives on. But even
if it was next week, even if it is next week that it came out, for a Call of Duty player of his caliber, he is warming up on the old Call of Duty, and he's had 335 days to do this. But anyway,
and that controller is probably like enormous in his hands. It's probably like this big, and he just has to it's like an arcade stand-up machine to him. He has to probably just hit the buttons like this.
How tall is he? What is it? I shouldn't say tall. What is his height?
He's like what, 5'9", 5'10", somewhere in that range.
Damn. Yeah, 5'10", 5'11", I think.
Yeah.
Imagine how big that 80-inch TV looks to him. It's probably like a movie screen.
Well, he doesn't realize that he's on the TV. He's got to,
It looks like it's at life size. He's the only player that's life size, actual size on the game.
Well, Budbury has a second part of this question. Actually, he's got three parts to this question, but is it Ferguson or McBride for you, Nate?
It is. Man, I love both of those two. I'll go by my rankings in so that I'm consistent. It's Ferguson by 2 spots. Goes Ferguson, Taysom, and then McBride. So I guess I'll go Ferguson. They should just score at will against the Giants. So, I mean, I think that the scoring upside is much greater with that implied total, more so than Arizona.
Yeah. Dave, you with that as well? Is it Ferguson for you? Or is it
no,
McBride?
I'm actually the opposite. I'm going McBride. I think McBride's going to have a good day with Ertz out, but it's not by a ton, but I prefer the potential in McBride.
Mm-hmm.
All right. K-Quicks is back with another one. But he's down to earth in this league. Still a full PPR. Do you trust Connor in the flex, or should he start Shakir or Quentin Johnston? Jonathan.
I think I'm trusting Connor in this. From all the reports that I've seen, it sounds like Connor is back. Shouldn't we've seen from the rest of the crop of running backs that they have that there's no one that is really in line to take a significant workload away from him. They've got Kyler Murray back, so it should at least, that offense should at least be more functional than with Clayton Tune. So yeah, I think I am still trusting Connor over those two.
Nate?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. The Quentin Johnson, I think, situation this week is intriguing because I think we'll see, should run every route, or at least 95% of them. But I do like Connor. I mean, we saw the Arizona offense without, even with Dobbs and Connor was decent, was good actually. I mean, they were competitive in every game, and their fault, drop off coincides exactly with Connor not playing. So I think I'm going to go with Connor. Dave?
Well, I appreciate the musical talent of Shakira. I don't know how many points you get in full PPR, right? So, and Quentin Tarantino Johnson, I don't know. I'm going the safe play. I'm taking Connor.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually take Quentin Johnston here because this is 100% a volume play for me with this game. Detroit, I believe it's going to be a super high scoring game. Mm-hmm. He should get, without having Palmer and no Mike Williams, this should be a high volume play. And that's what I'm looking for there. Connor coming back from the injury, of course we've highlighted the Kyler Murray stuff. But to me, it's just, this has got to be the one game where you can trust, or where Quentin Johnston can come out of his shell and actually produce. And if he doesn't produce in this game, I don't know if that there's ever going to be a game that he could produce in. Murray life-size Call of Duty has Quicks dying over there. Tootsie Pop in the chat says, "Hey friends, how you doing? How you doing?" In a guillotine, start 2. Rashid Shaheed, Tyler Boyd, Michael Thomas. Yeah, not an ideal 2. from the same team. Two of them from the same team there. Let's start with you, Nate.
I'll take the first two. I'll take Rashid Shaheed and Tyler Boyd. I think that Boyd's gives you that kind of that stable floor. Shaheed gives you that nice high ceiling. Guillotines are scary because, man, if you get 2 goose eggs, you're done, and then your season's over. And it's so I feel like those first two I feel more comfortable with. Again, the Thomas situation just is weird.
Is it guillotine or guillotine? Jonathan, how do you pronounce it in the UK? Do you say guillotine?
I think I would say guillotine, but
I think
guillotine
we say guillotine as well as Australians. Yeah.
You guys started the guillotine, didn't you?
Well, the French kind of started it.
Well, what's the difference? I'm just kidding. I know there's a huge difference. I'm joking. I'm sorry.
It's
sorry,
closer to you than it is us.
True.
One thing I would say on the same team thing, you brought that up, right? I'm a very strong believer on you got to look at the player as a player. For example, if you had Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and Keenan Allen, you wouldn't have doubts about them being on the same team, right? So you just got to look at the player for what they are, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen a ton of times. I mean, take the Bengals where you've got Higgins and Chase going off for 100 plus yards and a couple of touchdowns each, right? Anyway, getting back to it, I like Tyler Boyd with Higgins out, and Slant Boy is good for safe floor.
Jonathan.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd is the definite one for me here. As Dave said, with Higgins out, I think he's I think he's in line for a big day. I think because it's a guillotine, I think I'm going Michael Thomas for that safer floor, but it's really close between him and Thomas. Between Thomas and Shaheed for me.
All right, that got us through all of those questions. I'm sure there'll be more, so make sure you're putting those in the chat. We will get to them. But let's get back to the Tennessee at Tampa game. Baker Mayfield, still QB 16 on the year. Do you feel like he is solid streamer or superflex quarterback still, knowing you have no Patrick Mahomes, no Jalen Hurts, no Tua Tagovailoa, and then, of course, no Carson Wentz. Matthew Stafford. Dave.
Funny you mentioned that. I got a league. It's a dynasty league, and Baker is my QB1 this week because I got Mahomes out. I'm happy with Baker as a safe play. You look at his numbers; he's been pretty decent. He's getting you 200 to 300 yards, sometimes a little bit more, and usually at least a couple of touchdowns. I mean, you can't really, be mad at that. Now, is he going to go off for 400 yards, 470 and 5 touchdowns like CJ Stroud? I don't know if he's that kind of guy, but he's a pretty decent QB that needs a little bit more respect.
Yeah, he doesn't turn the ball over, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that has benefited him for fantasy purposes this year. Jonathan?
Yeah, I completely agree. He's been really solid, and the positive thing is that he is also supporting the multiple weapons that the Buccaneers have. I think that was something that I certainly had concerns about coming into this year, was like how much can we rely on Evans and Godwin, and is there actually anyone else after that? But yeah, I mean, those two are definite starts this week. Even Cade Otton might be a start as well. So yeah, he's Baker's looked much better than a lot of us expected this year.
Yeah, and I will bring this stat up as well. I brought up, we talked about Alvin Kamara earlier being the number one, target getter as far as running backs. Rashad White is number 2 in the NFL in receptions and targets. In targets for the running back position. So you brought up Cade Otton. So Nate, tell me, we know Baker is definitely a streamer. Can Cade Otton repeat what he's been doing over the last 2 weeks or so, getting the 3 weeks now, getting the 6+ targets, getting the receptions, adding 2 touchdowns last week? And you're muted.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like matchup base wise, that was Houston, and as much as I want to go matchup to matchup, Tennessee against wide receivers, great matchup. Tennessee against tight ends, not as great. I mean, I don't think that it's outside the realm of possibilities for him to do so, but we have to keep in mind the one thing that Tennessee, the reason why they limit some of the scoring to other positions is they have a slow pace. They will drag you down into the dirt with them, and they will try to keep it as minimal as best. And in a slower game, I don't think that the upside is with the tight end that they do a good enough job for, covering anyway. Without Kevin Byard, I'm intrigued to see how the next week goes, because that was kind of an important piece to slow down tight ends, and that it helped. But without him, well, they're playing more safeties. I think there's better streaming options out there personally than K. Dotton.
I'll ask you it this way: if you have the choice, K. Dotton or Chigakwonkwo?
Oh man, probably Otten. Chig came on at the end of last week, and that's a huge thing. Is that's when they really started it. It can go one of two ways, and this is not good information. I'm sorry, but do you look at it as they didn't use him the entire game, and they relied on him at the very end when they needed a surefire target when the secondary was dropping back, preventing the big play? Or is that they needed him the most when it was the most important, and they then, relied heavily? The narrative could be played either way. If I said it one way or the other with convincing and conviction, then you guys might say, okay, that makes sense. Maybe not. But if you just let it up for the two options, you start to weigh those two out and you go, maybe it's not. So I'm going to lean Otten, just because I trust that offense a little bit more to move the ball than Tennessee.
Dave, anything you want to add to the offensive side of this game?
No, not necessarily. I think I think it's going to be low scoring. To be honest, I'm not expecting a ton of fantasy points in this one.
All right, Nate, go ahead and give us the IDP side of this game.
Yeah, so the Tampa side is led by a non-existent pass rush necessarily for the most part, but Shaq Barrett could have that game because Tennessee's offensive line is so bad. You got to pick one spot, and I think it's Shaq Barrett who could have a better than expected game. Vita Vea is playing, and Vita Vea is always an intriguing aspect, especially against a heavy run team, because they could try to just run up the middle with Henry a ton, and I think he could be in line for an elevated tackle floor, especially for defensive tackle leagues. Levante David's been really solid every week. Devin White has been Heckle and Jide. Holy
Heckle
shit.
Jide.
Holy hell. Yeah, that's exactly
what are you drinking already this morning?
I know. Gatorade Electrolyte, which I need more of it. But yeah, the Jekyll and Hyde for Devin White's been pretty rough at times. And in the secondary, the one thing that we saw last week, and for people that have Ryan Neal in their IDP lineups or on their team, maybe this is the time to get him out of there. And I don't want to say drop yet. It's close. But he got benched last week in favor of D. Delaney because his coverage skills were less than stellar, which doesn't mean anything other than Antoine Winfield's a great play for the Tampa side for sure.
Jonathan, anything you want to add to the Tennessee at Tampa game as a whole?
I don't think so.
All right, we shall move on to a quick. We're gonna hit these two quick questions for Melvin. Look at this. Melvin and Nathan have the exact same question here. Good morning. Please pick two: Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell, Jacoby Myers. This is a standard league. Let's start with you, Nate.
I'm gonna still stick with Deontay, and I'm gonna go with Tank Dell.
Chris Battistell, host of the Fourth and Frame show on Wednesdays at 9:00. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm happy football's on early. I'm a big proponent of the early cross the seas game. So as much football as we can get, I'm all for it, man. So I dig it. But I agree with Nate there with that question, Tank and Deontay, especially with Nico out.
Dave, you good with that?
So I like Frank the Tank Dell, and I actually want to go Jacoby Myers, to be honest. I just think he's got a way safer floor.
Yeah, the thing that scares me with Myers is that Jets defense.
It's pretty stout. I mean, would they get Herbert 5 sacks last week, and he only threw for barely over 150 yards or something, no touchdown. So yeah, you're right there, but I think he still gets 5 or 6 targets.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I think I'm going Deontay and Tank Dell as well. I just have some concerns about Myers against that Jets defense.
Right back to you, Jonathan. Pick one to start between Mixon, Brees Hall, James Cook. Again, standard league. He's already planning on starting Monty and Eckler.
Ooh, I think I'm going Brees Hall here. That Raiders running defense is something that you can easily target. I'm questioning Mixon over Montgomery though. That I think Mixon might be in a better position with I've just seen that Chase is in, but we don't know how much he's going to play. Obviously Higgins is out. I think Mixon's going to see a ton of work, so I'd be tempted to go Mixon, Hall, and Eckler.
Dave,
I kind of agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the Monty play, to be frank with you, but yeah, I don't know. Brees Hall, I love the talent. You just don't know what kind of Jets we're getting. You know, if we get a Jets team that has a 1-touchdown lead and they start running the ball, he's going to go off. But it's just way too inconsistent, to be honest. And James Cook, man, he's been hot and cold. And I think Damian Harris is back this week, is he? If Harris is back, he's going to steal the goal line work. So there's a risk there. Yeah, Mixon, I would take. But those other two, gun to head, I'm probably taking. Yeah, I'm going to Mixon.
Yeah, I also think did they activate Leonard Fournette as well in Buffalo this week?
Not 100% sure on that.
Not 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Then let's move to the next game. Unless either one of you guys want to jump in on anything to add to that, Nate or Chris.
Just James Cook in a standard league with no PPR points is pretty much droppable with them bringing Fournette in. And then Brees Hall is going to get better, more upside than Joe Mixon, but I agree with starting Joe Mixon over Monty this week.
All right. Well, Kyle, jumping in here real quick. McBride or Fergie? We had this one a minute ago. Nate went with Ferguson. I believe Dave went with McBride. Irwin Shakir or Michael Thomas. Pick one full PPR. Start with you, Chris.
I'm going to go Ferguson over McBride. Kyler Murray is going to be looking to stretch the field a little bit, and Fergie's more of a safer play, so I'm going to ride with Ferguson there. And then full PPR, I'm going to go wide receiver. I'm going to go Michael Thomas over there. Shaker and Irwin are decent plays. We do know that Jamar Chase is going to be at least active, so that kind of sinks Irwin a little bit. Shaker's going to be hit and miss. Michael Thomas, even though he did get I believe it was last week, he got the donut. It should see some decent volume there for New Orleans.
Did you see that confirmed that Chase is active?
Yeah, I believe I did. I believe I did see the report that he is active. Let's see here. Bengals Jamar Chase is expected to be active per Adam Schefter.
Okay, I hadn't seen that one yet. So Nate, is it Irwin Shakir or Michael Thomas for you in a full PPR?
Yeah, it is Thomas. I worry that from the donut in the game to probably having a donut on his car from being arrested, there's a chance that that's not the best case scenario. But you guys touched on it earlier. It's definitely a floor play, and despite that, I don't think Derek Carr has you're a piece of shit off the field. I'm not going to give you the ball. I think he will find enough space over the middle to work. And like you said, Chris, the other two, I just don't trust. I mean, there could be zero burgers for both of those, and it wouldn't shock me. A zero for Michael Thomas again would shock me.
Yeah. And Derek Carr still visits Henry Ruggs in prison, so I don't think personal life is.
Hell, maybe that's what it is. Maybe. This is kind of like
he might get more targets.
Yeah, the Cooper Kupp Matthew Stafford breakfast. It's the Derek Carr conjugal visit
He's gonna redeem Michael Thomas's character.
Yeah, there we go.
Here we go. All right,
to the moon, Michael Thomas.
So we shall move to the San Francisco at Jacksonville. Jacksonville favored by 3.5. 45 over under. Let's start with the injuries, Nate.
Oh, wonderful. And I got to admit, I probably wasn't paying as close attention. Which game are we going to?
San Francisco at Jacksonville.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. San Francisco side, luckily, relatively healthy for the most part. Offensive lineman Aaron Banks is a backup who's out. no big deal. Drake Jackson, defensive end, was placed on IR. Dre Greenlaw, who has been banged up prior, has gotten 3 full practices in this week. And then Javon Hargrave, who was a questionable tag with the knee, has got back-to-back limited practices. I think he's erring on the side of caution. And welcome back, Deebo Samuel, which is, always a plus, right? And then for the Jacksonville side, a little bit more, but not like too crazy. We've seen that the Tyson Campbell hamstring is looking more positive. He's going to potentially play, or I say that with conviction. He's going to potentially play, but I think he's coming back with Cisco. Zay Jones is the only notable player that is out this game.
Just want to real quick update the game that's going on right now, where you have Indianapolis and New England over there in Germany. It is 7-3 at the half. Jonathan Taylor does have the lone touchdown in that game. San Francisco at Jacksonville. Should we be worried about the performances of Brock Purdy over the last few weeks there, Chris?
Definitely. It's definitely cause for some worry, especially as a fantasy asset. The way he's not been able to stretch the ball downfield is going to limit his ceiling as a fantasy producing quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be someone you want on your roster week in and week out, just because of the offense that he is attached to there in San Francisco with the weapons around him. Christian McCaffrey can break off a 60-yard run and so easily, even if it's just a dump down, right? There's so much potential for Brock Purdy to have these big games. But the question you're asking me is, should I be worried? Should fantasy managers be worried? Definitely be worried with Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there was they just coming off their bye week, now getting Deebo back as well, if that's going to make everything, better there in the San Francisco locker room. San Francisco allowing the 5th fewest points to quarterbacks. Jonathan, Trevor Lawrence. Yes, he's a must start. Absolutely must start, in my opinion. No Zay Flowers today. I'm sorry. Zay Flowers.
Zay Jones.
Zay Jones.
They don't have Zay Flowers playing for him either. Technically, you're right.
That's also true.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. Listen, I did this on purpose because they don't have Zay Flowers either. So, Jonathan, tell me, with the amount of points that San Francisco does not allow to the quarterback position, is this going to be a Travis Etienne game, or do you see a route that Trevor Lawrence excels against this 49ers D?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough to tell with this 49ers team. I mean, how, I'm sure Nate's going to talk about Chase Young and his role that is going to be in there. It's really hard to kind of know how you're actually supposed to exploit this team now. I think I would lower. Lawrence is still going to be a start, but you're probably going to want to temper expectations against the 49ers. ETN has been brilliant the last 4 weeks, so I think they do lean on him and try and establish that run. But yeah, I think Lawrence is still a start. I'd struggle to see how you would have a better option at that level with all of the bye weeks.
Mm-hmm. Nate, let's talk about the IDP side of this ball. I mean, Jonathan brought it up. Chase Young moving over from Washington over to San Francisco, pairing him up with Bosa on the other end or on the other side there. Is this just going to make it unfair for the rest of the NFL when they're playing the 49ers D?
Yeah, I mean, it was already a little unfair from the perspective of what the 49ers could bring week in and week out, but their depth rivaled pretty much only by the Eagles as far as defensive line depth. Listen to this. This is Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Chase Young. Coming in after that is Randy Gregory, Javon Kinlaw, Clellan Farrell. Then on a linebacker, you have Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, with even a rotating Oren Burks who's been decent. And their biggest weakness is their secondary, which is crazy. And you guys probably know this already, but if there's an area of the field they give up points to, and that's to the wide receiver. The 49ers have given up the 6th most points to wide receivers at 32.2 points per game in full point PPR. That is as many points they allow to the running back, quarterback, and almost a tight end combined. And they allow to the wide receiver, which just doesn't make a ton of sense. I know the math is there, but that's crazy. That's crazy that the wide receivers. So it's like, I would flip it back to the offensive side, and I'd say, Chris, knowing that right there, does that mean that you think Calvin Ridley and is that not Zay Flowers, not Zay Jones, not Zay Jones? We know
Christian
that,
Kirk.
But Christian Kirk are both, quote unquote smash plays, or are you? It's hard to be out on T-Law and so in on his 2 receivers, but I'm intrigued.
But the numbers tell you to be that way.
Yeah. Numbers are stupid. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, your best shot at predicting which one's going to go off is to look at what receiver on the opposing offenses that play the 49ers that tends to ball out. Either it's the X receiver, the Z receiver. Try to find the difference in the receivers when it comes down to breaking down the fantasy points against for the wideouts versus the 49ers. For me, as of right now, based on the way that the Jacksonville Jaguars offense is rolling, Christian Kirk is a must start week in and week out, especially if you're in any kind of PPR scoring formats. He's just soaking up the targets. He's the first read a ton of the time for the Jags. So for me, Christian Kirk is the must start. You're going to start really because of the draft capital that you most likely spent on him. Having that, top five round pick, top 6 round pick sitting on your bench, especially like Jonathan said with the bye weeks, isn't just going to do well for you. Last week, he did fare, their last game, he did fare pretty well. I believe he did get the 6 receptions, 80 something yards. If he did get the touchdown, that puts him into that wide receiver 1 for the week. So not a must start for me is Calvin Ridley, but if I got him, I'm putting him in and then hoping for the best. Fingers crossed, eyes crossed, legs crossed, everything crossed, hoping that he can at least finish as a mid to high end wide receiver 2 for me.
Don't cross your toes because then you'll end up in a walking boot.
Correct. Good call. The Jacksonville side of that IDP, I didn't get a chance to touch on the 2 or 3 guys there. Josh Allen's been spectacular in like 5 games. Good, decent, below average in the other. This is not one of those matchups that I love. Trent Williams, despite what the reporters were saying that he's questionable, or the coaching staff said he's questionable, and then they asked him, he goes, "You don't know what he's talking about," or something to that effect. He's like, "I'm playing. I don't care. I'll be on that field." And that's, I think there's a case to be made. Trent Williams might be the best player in football, and he doesn't want to leave the field, and so that matchup is tough. That is the truth, Josh Allen. But at linebacker, between Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun, both of those 2 against the San Francisco team that should, with Debo back, they should be moving the ball. I think the play is a little more faster paced than the average, but I think both linebackers are in play. I'm not starting Trayvon Walker, same reason as Josh Allen, but Trayvon Walker is garbage compared to Josh Allen. Rayshon Jenkins is probably the best play for the Jags right now. He'll play up in the box quite a bit. San Francisco cedes plenty of tackles to the safety position, especially one that plays in space like that. With the amount of yak that San Francisco has, he'll be relied on pretty heavily to pick up some of the tackle workload or volume. So Rayshon Jenkins.
No, Jorge wants to get that clip, and we have to have that drop.
Yeah.
Chris, anything to add to this game, San Francisco at Jacksonville, that you thought of over the last 30 seconds?
No. Start Christian McCaffrey. That's pretty much it. But I got to hop Christian McCaffrey. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a prevalent running back. But I got to jump off. He's a running back. Running back. Plays behind the quarterback.
Plays behind.
Yeah, you got it. But I got to jump off, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Keep on keeping on. I love you all. Toodles.
Everybody.
Appreciate you.
Later, brother.
All right, let's dive into this last 1 o'clock game really quickly. It is the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Colts.
Whoa. The who?
You like I just saw a thing a little bit ago. Had the Baltimore Colts on there. The Baltimore Ravens 6.5. The Ravens are favored by 6.5. 38 points is the over under. Nate, start us off.
Yeah. So Baltimore side, it's I was hoping David Ajabo would come back this week. He did not. But that's okay. We just have a few questionable tags, and I think every one of them are going to play. So Marlon Humphrey. Most likely, I don't know. Marlon Humphrey is more of the questionable because of the hamstring, but we'll see with him. Keaton Mitchell, the favorite for a couple days, and then hits this hamstring injury and gets the questionable tag. But he got a full practice on Friday. He will play. And Morgan Moses, offensive tackle, has a shoulder injury, but full practices as well. Marcus Williams returns in the secondary, which is always a really good sign for that defense. On the Cleveland side. Big loss across the offensive line is Jedrick Wills. That one hurts. He's out. That really impacts a pass rush for Baltimore that was lacking. So they're going to rely on that to have a little bit of a step up in the right direction. And outside of that, Marquise Goodwin's out. DeJuan Jones tackle. So the offensive line for Cleveland a little banged up. Short of that, they're pretty healthy relatively otherwise, short of the players that have already been out during the season.
All right, there, Jonathan. What are you expecting out of this game?
I'm not expecting a lot out of this game. I got in the show sheet that these are the top 2 defenses by defensive DVOA. I am expecting quite a low scoring game. I think it's going to be interesting to see who can actually produce out of this, because we do have a lot of kind of players that are normally fantasy relevant, but picking out who with these 2 defenses, I think is going to be really quite tough actually in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is going to be a lot lower scoring than the 38 over under with these 2 defenses. Welcome back, Dave. Welcome in Miss Stacy Perez, host of the Dynasty 365 show on Wednesday. Let's go ahead and jump into this question right here from Dame. Needs 1 flex, wide receiver, running back, tight end. He has Aaron Jones. I'm guessing that's Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, Jerome Ford, Kyle Pitts, and K. Dotton. He also needs one of the tight ends. So let's start with you, Stacy.
I'm gonna have to stick with my Packers. I'm gonna say go with Aaron Jones there out of Amari Cooper and Zay Flowers and Jerome Ford. Those options. I'm guessing, does he mean Kyle Pitts or Kata Otten for the tight end? That's that question.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I would do. And blame Arthur Smith for everything going wrong in your life. If you have to choose between Kyle Pitts or Kate Otten, I don't know that either one's a great choice, but I'd probably have to go with Kate Otten just with everything going on with the Falcons.
Yeah, the Jonnu Smith eclipse of Kyle Pitts is phenomenal. Dave, which flex and then which of the tight ends for you?
I'm hanging with Mr. Cooper. For those young people who are listening, that may not make sense, but old school show. So Cooper is the number 1 guy there. Watson loves him. He's always looking for him in the red zone, in the middle of the field. So I'm definitely going Cooper there. You can't trust Falcons. You just cannot trust anyone on the Falcons right now. So you've got to go Kate Otten.
Well, you can trust Tyler Algier.
Yeah. It feels gross, though.
It's still. Jonathan, you good with Aaron Jones, Cooper, Zay Flowers, Jerome Ford, Kyle Pitts, Kate Otten? Which one are you going with?
I think I'm going with Jones because of the usage that we saw last week. I do have concerns about how much Baltimore is going to limit Cleveland today, so I think I'm going Aaron Jones. And it's disgusting, but I think I am going Kyle Pitts and having something heavy near me to be able to throw at the TV at the same time.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, even as a Buck fan, I'm gonna have to lean Kyle Pitts just because of Taylor Heineke being the quarterback there. Nate, what are you going with in this one?
It is the Aaron Jones and Amari Cooper one is really close. I've been banging the drum for people to pick up Aaron Jones over the last couple weeks as his rise and AJ Dillon's fall coincide. So I'm going to trust it again this week. It's really close though with Cooper. And as far as tight end goes, I mean, I hate that so much because, like I said earlier about K. Dot, and entirely matchup based. It's not the best matchup against Tennessee, but me recommending Kyle Pitts just seems like you're going to get more pushback. And you idiot, you're stupid. What'd you say, Kyle Pitts? K. Dot, and you recommend it, and they start him or they don't start him, whatever. But I'll go. I'm going to go Pitts just because that's stupid.
We say Pitts, man, but like Jonnu Smith went for 100 yards and a touchdown last week. You know, what did Pitts go for? I mean, literally the other tight end on the team went off for a very serviceable amount, and Pitts, what do you do? Like 50 yards?
Yeah, 56. Yeah,
56 yards. I mean, are we happy with that? You know, I understand it's tight end, but you know, he's got what, one touchdown on the year, right?
One touchdown, but 56 yards was his second highest yard totalage of the year.
Exactly. I mean, you're better off starting Mike Gesicki than you are Kyle Pitts. I mean, we have to at some stage go, this experiment is done. You know, the laboratory is done.
I don't think it's the experiment. I think it's more like what Stacy said. It's the Arthur Smith.
So here's one thing with Pitts versus Otten too, is if you want to trust in the fact that Tyler Heineke is going to be better than Desmond Ridder, and we look at Pitts's target, at least potential. Kyle Pitts' lowest target, which is 3 in week 1, is Kate Otten's like 4th highest. Kate Otten's had the last 3 weeks better, 6, 6, and 9. But prior to that, you have 2 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets. Pitts has 9, 11, 6. I mean, 5, 5, 5.
And how many catches? How many catches did he?
But that's like I'm saying that we've had a sample size of Desmond Ridder, which means a lot to me because Desmond Ridder's garbage, and I still don't trust Arthur Smith. This is not a soapbox Kyle Pitts rant. Far from that, because I don't want that clipped either, along with some of the other stuff I'm sure they're going to find in this debacle of a couple hours. But man.
I'd feel better having David Njoku than Kyle Pitts right now. I need a floor with a tight end. I need some sort of a floor, you know? So his name says it, Pitts, you know? Like if there was a tight end called Stinker, I wouldn't recommend starting him, right? Yeah, let's be done with Pitts.
Do you guys want to hear something gross?
Yeah.
So according to Fantasy Pros, in a half PPR format, K. Otten is outscoring fantasy points per game on average 7.1 to Kyle Pitts' 6.7. That's gross.
Numbers don't lie.
And it's Arthur Smith's fault.
It is.
Everything is.
Everything.
Yeah, it's okay. Moving on. I'm sorry, Dan. We were zero help there when it comes to your tight end position. But hey, listen. You get Aaron Jones, you are perfectly fine because I will recommend you do not start Zay Flowers after the last couple of weeks. An absolute dive when it comes to Zay Flowers and his production. Still got 7 targets 2 weeks ago. Turned, 5 receptions, turned it into a grand total of 19 yards. Last week only got the 1 reception on the 1 target for 11. So my question then, Stacy, is should you be worried about this production, especially going into this week, going up a very good Cleveland defense?
Well, I mean, I think you have to be worried a little bit, right? But I mean, and this week is probably not going to be his most productive week against Cleveland for sure. Let me pull up. I had some fun little numbers up here. Just a second, because I really enjoy looking at numbers here. But we're looking at wide receivers. So Cleveland Browns, terrible matchup. They allow 21 points per 2 receivers per game. That is the second fewest behind the Jets. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking to start Flowers this week, I think you're going to have to temper your expectations.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think the issue is the average depth of target, and I mean you need that. You need a high level of usage to kind of to push that production forward. And if you're what was it, 7 targets for 19 yards, did you say? I mean, that is it's really tough to be really productive when that's your average depth of target. I'm sure he will have spike weeks coming. He is a really good receiver. Lamar is playing well, but I would be looking to sit Flowers today if possible. Certainly, if you've got higher upside options.
Dave, looking at the backfield there in Baltimore, Jerome Ford has been getting the touchdowns like we talked about earlier with the Lamar talk, but Mitchell coming off of a hamstring, do you expect him to get any run this week?
This is just like pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. I just don't want it. All right, I don't want any part of the backfield there. Pumpkin pie is bad.
With pumpkin pie?
Oh, it's terrible, guys. You guys just minced up pumpkin and throw it in a pie.
It's amazing.
Come on, Jonathan, work with me here, right?
Easy, Vegemite. Slow down. Slow down,
Listen,
Vegemite. Slow down.
Vegemite is fantastic.
You are talking to a man who at his Friendsgiving had to go 0 carbs. All he had was freaking turkey and peas. And you're taking away his pumpkin pie too?
No.
I'd have devoured some pumpkin pie.
Is it a dessert or is it savory? Come on, man. It's such a weird meal, like peanut butter and jelly. Can we talk about that? That is such a bizarre concept to me. Put peanut butter and jam on top of bread.
Now pumpkin pie. Now you're attacking peanut butter and jelly. Like, fine.
Is it not a weird concept?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Mel Kiper eats pumpkin pie every single day. Did you guys know that fact?
Nope, but I like them more.
Every single day. Mel Kiper. Look it up.
What's next, Dave? You going to make fun of baked beans in the morning for breakfast?
That is good. I love baked beans.
That is the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Baked beans on toast is fantastic.
What is wrong with
a grilled
you? tomato? Oh my god! You just my
Dude,
god!
You grill a tomato. Come on, Jonathan, work with me, man. Help me.
Yeah, all right. I will. I feel like there is not a lot that a British person can defend about the culinary experience of Great Britain, but a cooked breakfast is genuinely really good.
It's a little known fact. The reason they left and we started America was because of that shit breakfast. We decided we needed biscuits and gravy, so we said we're out of here. No, taxation was all. It was all made believe. Nobody cares.
It was a straw that broke a camel's back.
Yeah, we pay a ton of taxes now. No one cares about that. It was, but don't serve me no damn baked beans on a piece of toast in the morning with tomato and mushrooms and the sausage. I'm cool with, but yeah, get out of here.
They fired up the Mayflower and off they went.
Exactly.
We don't need your stinking tea or your baked beans.
Those baked beans sucked.
Go murder some people.
Sorry, we were talking about running backs, I think. But how we got to this topic, I don't know. But nonetheless, I just don't want any part of running backs there. I get it. Gus Edwards has had 2 great weeks, but the number 1 running back in Baltimore is Lamar Jackson, and that's just too risky for me. If you got Gus, you're probably playing him as a flex. You probably picked him up off waivers, or he was your 14th, 15th round pick, right? But yeah, I'm not. Other than Gus, I don't want anyone else.
All right. Speaking of backfield, is it Kareem Hunt or is it Jerome Ford for you, Stacey, in Cleveland?
I think I'm probably gonna have to go with Kareem Hunt if I have to make that decision. Hopefully you don't, but there's a lot of guys on bye this week, so you may actually have to do that. But I think for me, I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. Who's our last person? Just guys, real quick, because I was trying to think. Who's Philly, KC, and Miami? Who's our 4th on a bye?
The Rams.
Thank you,
Jonathan. Backfield. Let's talk about the backfield real quick, and then I want Nate to jump in and let's get the IDP side of this and get done with these 1:00 games. We don't have but like a half hour, 45 minutes left for us, and we still got to get to the 4:00 games. So,
yeah. I think with Baltimore, I think Edwards has he's seen so much work around the goal line, which has really kind of pushed his production forwards. If you're not getting that touchdown, I worry about his floor. Mitchell, I think, obviously we've seen the huge upside. I would temper expectations just because we don't know what the upside is going to be, but I really do want him on my bench just in case he does explode and you can take him forward. But I do feel a bit worried about him this week.
Nate, give us the IDP side of this game.
Yeah, for the Baltimore side, Justin Matabuke, defensive tackle / and has been phenomenal over the last couple of weeks. He's one that is slowly turning into that defensive line. I mean, he's borderline defensive line 1 scoring wise, but I trust him more as a back end defensive line 2. The edge rushers and the defensive ends score decently well against Cleveland, so I'm comfortable with him. Jadeveon Clowney, I'm not as comfortable. He had that spurt where he was having plenty of pressures. But Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, a player from an edge rush that I do like, though, is Odafe Owe, who, since he's come back, has really looked the part. And I think he could have a couple splash plays this week. And then at safety, Marcus Williams returns. That takes Geno Stone. If you had him in, you can drop him now or at least put him on your bench. And Kyle Hamilton is a week in, week out confusion that no one knows what to do with because he's very, confusing. Very good soliloquy there, Nate. On the Cleveland side, the edge rush for Cleveland, outside of Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith has picked up as of late. Him and Ogbo Okonroko have both been rotating snaps, so they both have been kind of cannibalizing each other's volume, but both have been productive. Here's the thing. At linebacker, you have 4 guys that have been splitting snaps. JOK, Anthony Walker, Taki, and Tony Fields. I hate that, but in my start sit column this week, I put that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, JOK, is an actual good start because he has this history against Baltimore where he's played extremely well against them. Baltimore gives up the most points to linebacking position, most tackles. JOK is, I think, 4th in the NFL, or no, 2nd in the NFL in tackles for loss, despite only playing 60% of the snaps. That's the option that Cleveland needs. So I actually am going to say I like JOK this week. He's a gross play by most because of the snaps, but I really love that. And then Grant Delpit is my defensive back 1 on the week. Same reason. Baltimore, run heavy, a lot of safety box snaps, should see plenty of upside. That is that.
So just a quick question on JOK. In one of my IDP leagues, I've got Zaire Franklin, and then I've got Aziz Al-Shair, Bobby Wagner, and Jermaine Pratt. Are you putting JOK above any of those 3?
No. I can see a situation where he has that legitimate LB1 upside, JOK that is, if he gets the snaps, but I don't want to bank on that coaching staff all of a sudden bucking the trend of him not getting the snaps. So I think you're safer with the other guys you have.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, fellas. And Stacy, we are going to dive into the tailgating in frames right after the tailgating in frames. We will get into the 4:00, and then of course the Sunday night and Monday night games. A bunch of those higher scoring games in the later window today. So let's dive over. Let's get Courtney over here, and we will let her tell you about this dip today.
I love playing 2-hand touch, eating way too much.
Hey guys, and welcome to another exciting week of Tailgating in Frames. I'm your host, Courtney, and you can find me on Twitter at LoveTractor3, but more importantly, you can find me right here with the gang at Fantasy in Frames. So, where are you guys at week 10? Are we winning? Are we losing? Are we breaking even? Are we pissed like the rest of the world at Arthur Smith that he just won't play Bijan? Oh, all right. This might not be the most exciting game of the week, but in our house, we are a family divided. My husband, and he also raised my son to be a Vikings fan. I, of course, am a Saints fan, right? So today's game of the Vikings versus the Saints. Saints are traveling to Minnesota to play them. We always have people over. We have people over. We drink, we eat, we have fun, we laugh. One year my husband even made a scarecrow version of Drew Brees and ran him over with a car. Come on, y'all. This is just fun. This is just fun. This is what it's all about. So last week, Saints barely pulled through beating Chicago, right? We should have owned that game. Our defense kept us in the game. Now, Derek Carr did pretty good, threw for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it's still not what we need to. We are the top of the NFC South, but it's not what we need to stay there. It's not what we need to progress in the playoffs, right? So, and then, hey, Dobbs came off of the bench. He didn't even know his teammates' names. And he came off the bench and saved Coach Kevin O'Connell from one more week of not being fired, right? And he played amazing. But it came with its losses. They lost Cam Akers. It is what it is, right? I honestly, this sucks for Cam Akers because that's now one right, one left Achilles, and I don't see him bouncing back from this. He bounced back once, but then again, the Rams didn't want him. Vikings were starting to play him. I actually was thinking he was going to have a really good season there, but, is again what it is. So with that being said, and me being from the South, and me having to have faith and hope amongst hopes that the Saints pull it off against the Vikings this Sunday fun day, we are going to go back to my roots, and we are going to combine one of my favorite sandwiches, which is a muffaletta, which is all that. It's got all that. The cured salami, it's got the provolone cheese, it's got the gardenia in there, right? That mix of those pickled vegetables. We are going to create a muffaletta hot dip that we are going to eat with Triscuits, some kind of really good hearty cracker like Triscuit, or French crusty bread. So let's get started. All right, guys. So what do you need for this? You need the iconic green olives. You need some type of cured meat. Obviously, it's salami. My kiddo doesn't like salami, so we do pepperoni. So I've already diced some of it up here. You need garlic powder. You need softened cream cheese again. And you need the good old gardenia mix, which is a delicious pickled vegetable mix, right? They make it mild. They make it hot. They make it super spicy. You also need provolone cheese. I couldn't find just provolone cheese at the store, so I went with a basic Italian blend, which is it's got the mozzarella, it's got the provolone cheese in there, and that is good. That is exactly what we want, right? That is exactly what we want, is all that good stuff. So we are going to actually, if you have a food processor, use it. If you don't have a food processor, then just give these guys a really thin chop, because we are going to mix this up. Because if you've ever had a muffaletta before, it's got that mixture. It's got that green olive and that gardenia mixture, and that is what gives it all the flavor. It's almost like it's condiment, right? That's exactly what it is. It's condiment. So go ahead and mix it all up. You're going to put it in with the softened cream cheese, and then we are going to bake it in the oven at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes until it gets super hot, super bubbly, super creamy. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some of these vegetables out. It's got the carrots, it's got the banana peppers, it's got the cauliflower, and that is exactly what we want. It's got a couple roasted red peppers in there, and we're going to chop it all up really fine. We're going to put it into our processor here, and that is going to be delicious. Okay, you guys, look at that beauty. Oh my gosh, the smell from it. Oh, it's so delicious. So what you're going to do now is you're going to put it in with the cream cheese and the garlic. We're going to just chunk it all up in there, right? And this is where we're really going to stir it all together. Look how beautiful that is. Look at that mixture. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Now you're going to notice it's a little watery. That's it. That's okay. That is okay. Because when it bakes down, that's just going to give it that extra bubble, right? Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I wish there was smell-o-vision. Okay, so we're going to mix all this up, and we're going to put it into the oven. We're going to top it off with more cheese, because right now we only have that cream cheese in there. But what the heck? Who doesn't love cheese? Who doesn't love cheese? We're going to go ahead and put a little bit in here too. And that'll help with the moisture content. And then we're going to put more when we put it into the oven. So yeah, what the heck? Let's throw it in there. So who was excited that they finally gave a little bit of love to Juwan Johnson, right? I'm also pretty excited that Taysom Hill's still doing his thing. He's never going to be our quarterback one, but I still enjoy that he's doing his thing. So as we enter into this oven, what are we going to do when we're about to cook this food? What are we going to do? What are we going to think about? Who's winning this game? Of course, you're going to play your stars. Of course, you're going to play Olave. Of course, on the other side of the ball, you're going to play Addison, because I think Dobbs is going to be able to get him the ball, right? I think Dobbs is really going to do well here. But gotta have hope and faith in my Saints. I'm going 21-17 Saints. And I don't know what the over-under is, but my guess is people are probably putting money on the over. I don't think the Saints have gone over any of their last games, at least their last 5 attempts. So 21-17. I'm playing Taysom Hill as a flex because he's really been showing us some stuff. But guys, whichever way this pendulum falls, we know right now that our head coach and the Vikings head coach are in a very sticky situation because neither one of these teams are really putting forth the effort that we hoped they would at the beginning of the season. So let's get cooking. Let's get baking because I'm excited to try this dip. All right, guys, here it is. Now, this is just a small portion because I got the big dish out for the game. But let's go ahead and try it. Woo! Tastes like a sandwich in dip, right? Speaking about dip, think Dobbs is going to do it again? I guarantee you my Saints defense will force at least one turnover. At least one. But I do expect him to do well now that he knows the playbook a little bit more. I expect Taysom Hill to play well. I hope they keep Juwan Johnson because Derek Carr just needs to move the chains. Just 10. Keep moving it. Just 10. Just 10. Well, I can't. Let's go back in for more. Y'all, this is so creamy. It is so, the spice of all that pickled vegetable in there. I can taste the green olive. I can taste the pepperoni. I don't think it's missing the chunks of provolone, but I think this is so good. The crunch reminds me of the bread. So it tastes like New Orleans in my mouth. And that's what I'm going for today. Because again, I am going for 21-17 Saints. I looked the under up while this was cooking, the over under, and it's about 42, which we're going under, guys. We're going under. But it is so creamy, so spicy, so yummy. It's going to knock your socks off. So if you've never been to New Orleans, make my hot muffaletta dip and let you be transformed to Nola, right? Who dat? My Saints are going to win today. It might be ugly, but I'm predicting a win. I am Courtney, and you can find me on LoveTractor3 at twitter.com. But more importantly, right here with the gang every Sunday with Tailgating in Frames. Who dat, y'all? Who dat? Of course, my son wanted me to put this in there. And I say, no, 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 no. Who dat? Who dat?
Oh, yes. I love that. I love that her son was holding the camera right there, I guess. And he wanted that skull in there and got it in there. Props to him for doing that. Breaking news, by the way, just reported by Adam Schefter that Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase is officially active.
To add a little bit to that, as we talked earlier with Derek Stingley, this is they're set to square off per Adam Schefter for the first time in the NFL since their many practice battles during LSU's national championship season. Before they became teammates at LSU, Derek Stingley and Jamar Chase were teammates on a Louisiana-based 7-on-7 team. Stingley's from Baton Rouge, Chase from New Orleans, and their battles will be resumed today in Cincinnati. So it sounds like maybe they will shadow.
I was just fixing to ask that question. Do you feel like he's going to shadow him now?
I mean, I feel like Adam Schefter probably had conversations with Houston and with the defensive coordinator, and it might make sense for him to say that because of information he's gotten.
So going back to a prior question I had for you, before we knew that Chase was definitely starting, if in a position specific league, are you starting Stingley now, knowing that he's probably going to be shadowing or at least, covering Chase most of the game?
I will say I still probably don't start Stingley.
Okay.
First week back. But I will say that it probably lowers Chase. Like Chase was my number 2 receiver, even with the back, just because I thought the voluminous amount of work he will have. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I still think he's, wide receiver 1, but I definitely want to watch that matchup for sure.
All right, let's dive into the 4 o'clock game, starting off with Atlanta at Arizona. Arizona favored by 2.5. 43.5 is the over-under. We've talked a little bit about Kyler Murray and his, not going to say his height issues, but possibly the controller being too big, or maybe the thumbs, or maybe he's jumping back and forth on the controller, like the little guy going back and forth and having a problem hitting everything all at once. That is what it is. Bijan Robinson versus Tyler Algiers in this game. Hang on, because I think I got a little interesting stat that might, bring both of these guys to relevance. You might be playing both of them. Arizona gives up the third most fantasy points to the running back position. We know what Arthur Smith has, or the lack of usage with Bijan, and how he likes to use Tyler Algier at the goal line. But if you have to make the decision, you can only start one of these guys. Stacy, who is it going to be?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's such a gross question, Gator. Oh man. My heart wants to say Bijan, but I think the right answer is probably Algier, just because I think you have to do whatever would be the common sense thing to do, which would be to start your best player that you drafted in the first round, right? That would be the common sense thing to do, but Arthur Smith doesn't want to do that. So take Tyler Algier. I think you just have to play that game with it.
Okay. I'll ask this, Jonathan. Is Jonnu Smith versus Kyle Pitts? And the reason I asked the question is Arizona is also gives up the third least amount of points to the tight end position.
I think I'm still going Pitts. I don't feel good about it, but he has been seeing targets. That's a thing that the production hasn't quite been there. But I don't know. I feel as though it's only a matter of time before it does turn into touchdowns. So I think the fact that he is still seeing targets is at least something to hold on to. So yeah, I think I'm still going Pitts, but I'm not happy about it.
Dave, I'll let you entertain both of these questions. I already know that you're off the Pitts train.
We're doing this. We're still talking about Pitts. We're still having conversation. It's Jonnu Smith, guys. Look at what Heineke did with Logan Thomas in Washington, right? He absolutely loves these big body receivers, especially for a average quarterback. They're looking for the most physical guys who can get some yardage. It's going to be Jonnu Smith, absolutely. Just obviously don't trust Pitts there, just with what he's doing. The other two was we're talking about Algier and Bijan. Look, I don't know what's going on there. Maybe Arthur Smith has a majority share in his mustard, and he's trying to get some publicity for not using Bijan. I have no idea, but it's wild. I'm probably playing Bijan, but maybe he's your flex. He's not your RB1, which sucks. I don't know if I can trust Tyler Algier enough. Bijan's talented. He's the kind of guy who can go off for an 80-yard touchdown, and no one would be surprised, right? But yeah, the usage is not there. But guns to my head, I'm probably going Bijan. I would say now at this stage of the season, we have to forget where you drafted players. This is about who's on your roster. So there is that temptation, especially for newer fantasy players, to have that mentality of, well, I paid a first rounder for him, so I have to use him. I think you've got to get rid of that right now. At the end of the day, Bijan's not a running back one, unfortunately, based on usage. He's your flex. I would play James Conner over Bijan Robinson.
KJ Osborne is listed as out. TJ Hawkinson is going to be fine. He is healthy and playing. Robert Woods healthy and playing. Ryan Tannehill is out. Just looking through some of these real quick last-minute ones. It looks like that's all so far. Nate, go ahead, and you could tackle either one of these questions. Go ahead and dive into the injuries at the same time.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, for the Falcons. The injuries or IDP?
Both.
Okay.
No, injuries, and then you can go from there.
Injuries for Atlanta really is Mac Hollins is out, and that is, doesn't really move the needle. Kyle Pitts did not practice Friday because he didn't have, his wife had their first baby. So Kyle Pitts to the moon in honor of his son. This is going to tug on Arthur Smith's heartstrings, we know that's going to be the case. In Arizona, Amari DiMercado. Stacy, go ahead.
Amari DiMercado. That's my really horrible Italian accent. And I really wanted to do it when I was in Italy a couple weeks ago, but I didn't have Wi-Fi. And I got to tell you, it killed me that I couldn't get on and just absolutely butcher some Italian for you guys.
Well,
Sounds
what
like
do we
a fancy
say?
cocktail.
She had a few of those too, I'm sure.
I did. I had several cocktails.
Well, we say ciao to Amari DiMercado because he's out. And that's my Italian. Exactly. Thank you very much. From the IDP side on Arizona, Kazir White has been a plug and play every week. Love it, right? Especially against Atlanta and this offense. The pass rush, it's hard to say anybody specifically. I really just don't love anybody. I honestly don't.
In general, in life, or what?
Just mostly in the Arizona sphere of pass rushers. They don't do much for me. The defensive backs kind of do a little, in that Buda Baker, Jalen Thompson, both are solid plays. On the Atlanta side, Atlanta's pass rush, again, they are very similar to Arizona, non-existent. I'll be shocked if either one of those two teams really have a ton of pressure or production, I guess is probably the right way to say that. And then let me see who else I mean, Nate Landman has been excellent, really good run stopper. I think he's a very underrated linebacker that's creeping into that every week starter area. He really has been. Caden Ellis is a very inefficient linebacker in terms of tackle volume, so I fade him more than I start him. And then, like I said, Richie Grant is boomer bust. He plays in the box. I like that against Arizona. I'm not quite sure what we're going to see. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a little bit of rust, but Jesse Bates Jr. or the third is the one that's going to be the benefactor of that if there is any pressure whatsoever. That's it.
Quay Walker is listed now as out. Rudy Ford is healthy. Breaking news in college. Jimbo Fisher fired from Texas A&M, receiving $76 million in his buyout. I know it's not fantasy football related, but $76 million to stay home. By Jimbo Fisher. Yeah.
Fire me.
A good deal.
$6 million.
Jorge, I need to be fired for my $76 million, please. I'll take 1 million. Just fire me for 1 million. Good Lord. The world we live in.
And people still have student loans. Isn't that wild, right?
Yeah.
76 million for college football. Trips me out.
Stacey, anything you want to add to this Atlanta-Arizona game?
Well, okay, so the Falcons defense is allowing 14.7 points per game to opposing teams' running backs. If you got 14.7 points out of James Conner, would you not be thrilled? I think you would, because he's only averaging 11.4 in the games that he's played this season. So even though, it's a pretty stingy, run defense there, if you can get me 14 points from James Conner, sign me up.
Yep. Jonathan?
No, I mean, we've spoken a little bit about Kyler already, but it's just the more I think about it, the more I think it's better just to wait a week, see how he looks. There are plenty of good streaming options. So, yeah.
So are you also out, of course, then on Hollywood Brown?
I think Hollywood Brown probably has. I mean, he's certainly got a much higher floor than say last week. I think. But yeah, maybe a little bit lower down on Brown. Dave, anything you want to add?
On the Arizona side or the Tampa Bay side?
Arizona or Atlanta, either side.
I like Connor this week as your RB2. He's like you said, he's averaging 11 points a game. I'm happy with that as my RB2 or maybe even flex. I think we're going to get decent points out of him. I like McBride. As we've mentioned with Kyler Murray, he hasn't played since December of last year, so we need to see what kind of Kyler we're getting.
Agreed. I do like the wait and see on Kyler Murray. One last shot. Anything for you, Nate?
Nope.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the highest over under on the slate altogether. Detroit at the Chargers. Chargers favored by 3. 48.5 is the over under. Nate, go ahead and give us all of the injuries for this game.
Yeah, there's really only two of note. Halo Vitae, the offensive guard, is out, and Levi Onwuzurike, who's the defensive tackle, is doubtful, most likely not playing. So, of course, the two players with 185 letters between their two names are the two that are out. Everybody else, John Smith is in, as is any other short name. For the Chargers side, come on, look at that. Nobody. They are healthy. It's good way to go. Tuli Tuipulotu is going to play. I just want to get that name out there so I can cover every syllable and vowel on my bingo card. So congratulations, Nate wins.
Chargers are
You can
allowing
log off now. That's it. Done.
done. Say bye. Chargers are allowing the third most points per game to quarterbacks. Jonathan, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown are absolute smash starts. Now, here's another little crazy stat that I found. Amon-Ra St. Brown has 0 end zone targets this year.
That's a surprise. Not really, just because we've seen what the production has been from him this year. He doesn't need that to be highly productive in fantasy. It would be a nice cherry on the top of the cake, but it's but he's been great. I think Goff is the best streaming option that you have this week. I think Detroit wins this game as well. So yeah, I'm really high on both of those. I think the big question that we're going to get to is how that backfield is split. I think that's the big question with Montgomery back. I'm really not sure how it's going to be. I think it's a really difficult one for fantasy managers this week.
Well, preseason we heard from Dan Campbell and from the offensive coaches that they were going to use Jahmyr Gibbs more in a passing role, more in the slot. Dave, is that how we possibly could see this going forward, where Monty is the back, and we're going to see Gibbs actually, for PPR side of things, crush it because he's going to get the targets?
Man, unfortunately, Gibbs, you trust him as much as an old man trusts a fart. It's just not. It's not a safe option, guys. I've got a league where I've got Gibbs, and I'm playing Dalton Kincaid over him because I just can't take that risk. We've seen what he can do with a full workload, but unfortunately, Detroit, I think they just want to use Monty as the north-south guy. So he's just way too low floor. That's the danger you have with Gibbs. You're relying on big plays.
I think it's the goal line work, which is going to be the one to really look at this week and over the next couple of weeks, because obviously without Montgomery there, we've seen the ceiling of Gibbs, but with them both there, we just don't know how that goal line work is going to pan out. My guess is that it would go to Montgomery, but yeah, we'll have to see.
Stacey, how do you see this backfield playing out there in Detroit?
I agree with David and Jonathan. I definitely think that Monty is going to get that goal line work there. Keep in mind though, even though he does have 6 touchdowns, 3 of those came in one game against my Packers. But Gibbs is definitely better in the passing game. I mean, right? He's got 20 receptions, 165 yards. When you look at Monty's, obviously he missed some time, but he's got 6 receptions for 66 yards. So, clearly, Gibbs is going to be, used more in that capacity. But I think, their work is probably, I cannot see it going back to the way that it was earlier in the season, where it was just completely all Monty and Gibbs was kind of an afterthought, much to all of our dismay. I think it's probably going to even out a little bit more. I mean, you saw what he did against the Raiders, even though it was the Raiders. He's obviously a talented back. That's why they drafted him. I would see that it's more of a evens out just a little bit more there. But you're probably gonna, if for some reason you've got both of them, you're starting Monty, right, with the touchdown upside.
I think if the Lions have a lead, they go with Monty. I mean, why would you risk Jahmyr Gibbs if you can just kill the clock? If it's a close game or they're trailing, maybe we see Gibbs in 2-minute drills and catching passes. Maybe it helps you in PPR, but I think it's going to be extremely game script dependent.
I love that point there, Dave. Nate, go ahead and give us the IDP side of things on this Detroit Chargers game.
Yeah, the Aiden Hutchinson is. I mean, here are the must starts for Detroit. You're starting Aiden Hutchinson, And outside of that, not many must starts. Alex Anzalone is a good option. I think that Anzalone is capable of a faster play, plenty of opportunities. That's kind of what I want to see. The more volume, faster pace. I'm good with Anzalone. There's no one really eating into his tackle or his snaps. As far as the secondary goes, Brian Branch is a great spot here. I love Brian Branch. And then pick your poison of one of the other two. It could either be Kirby Joseph, could be Tracy Walker. I'm leaning Kirby Joseph just a little bit. But then Jerry Jacobs on the outside is one of the most heavily targeted corners out there. So it's like, all right, in a high-scoring game, Chargers, plenty of passing opportunities, but I think it's going to be more slot to Keenan Allen, which for me is the Brian Branch side. On the Chargers, now you have this pass rush against a stout defensive or offensive line for Detroit. Not as big a fan of Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack this week. And then you talk about, I talked about Tui Tuipulotu earlier. He's another one. Rotation. When you have a rotation, less snaps, good offensive line, a little lower ceiling, lower floor as well. Linebacker, both Eric Kendricks and Kenneth Murray are in play. And in secondary, Derwin James, not many other options there. That's it.
You brought up, that you're not playing too many people on the Detroit defense. Do you feel like it could open up for Quentin Johnston if, getting the volume, not necessarily, being able to capitalize on the volume?
It's tough, man. I mean, we saw Quentin Johnston get volume last week too. And I'm not saying last week was the baseline, but Detroit's secondary is not great. So that's what leads me. Like, I have Quentin Johnston higher. I picked him up and I have to start him in a league. I'm going to say I get to start him in a league because there is an area where he sees plenty of volume and actually can deliver. The question is does he have the trust with Justin Herbert yet? And so we'll see. Like I said, Jared Jacobs, pretty tough against, 61.9% catch rate and a 73.5 passer rating against. Cameron Sutton on the other side, 92.1% passer rating against. They seem great, but Detroit still has weakness in that secondary overall to passing schemes.
Yeah, I mean, I keep wanting to bring up Quentin Johnston because I think this is the last chance he's going to have without having, other competition, knowing that Justin Herbert throws the ball. I think there's only been one game where he hasn't thrown the ball 30 some odd times. So, with this Detroit secondary, I do believe that this will be the last chance for him to make inroads into becoming an NFL player and not just staying in TCU. Moving on to the Giants at Dallas, 17.5. Giants are the Dallas Cowboys are favored by 17.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
No clue why the spread is that big. Over-unders at 38.5. Who's out in this game for these teams?
The Giants. Chances and anybody betting on the Giants with plus 17. I think it's the second highest spread since like Arizona back a couple years ago, and it's rightfully so. I would 100% take the points with Dallas. It's going to be bad. I don't know who else is going to be bad. This might be the list of who's playing is more recognized or unrecognizable than the players who are not playing. But other than people that are already ruled out, there's really not much. So let's start with the Dallas side. Nothing on the Dallas side. Let's move to the Giants side. Then you have the offensive line. Evan Neal out. Adoree Jackson, secondary, out. Mark Glowinski, offensive line, out. It's a mess. Andrew Thomas is back. He played last week, and so is Justin Pugh. So at least they have those two pieces. It's going to be a long day for the Giants.
Well, is this Daboll's last year? Do you think this is his last year in New York?
No, I don't think so. I think after how well they did last year, and if they ended up picking one of the top two quarterbacks, I think he's given at least a year.
To his credit,
he was coach of the year last year for a reason. Yeah, so I I think he's given at least one more year.
Are you playing it? Other than Saquon, he's really got nothing to work with, right?
Maybe Wandale.
I just say Wandale.
Maybe. I mean, how many points do they score? Do they score 10?
Maybe.
I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under.
Yeah. If maybe is stretched out to 11 syllables, and that's not a strong conviction. I feel the same. I might even throw an extra A in there. So maybe
Dave,
on the third day.
The question I have is, with the spread being as big as it is at 17.5, Dallas being at home, I know you're going to play your CeeDee Lamb. I know you're going to probably play Dak Prescott, but do you see any road that says that this is going to be super limited for fantasy points for Dallas?
Look at what happened with the Chargers last week against the Jets. They got off to this crazy lead, and Justin Herbert did nothing. I mean, other than Keenan Allen, who got a few points, the whole team really kind of crumbled. Actually, I lie. Austin Eckler got a couple of touchdowns. But I think we see a similar game script where they get a lead, they're running the ball, they're using their backup guys. I'm not excited fantasy-wise for this. I don't think it's going to be a shootout and there's going to be a ton of points on the board.
I think defensive scores are going to be something to worry about as well. Like if Dallas, scores a pick six, gets a fumble recovery for a touchdown, it's very, very possible that we just see limited offensive production.
Stacey, are you staying completely away from this game, or are you saying, you know what? No, I may just start one player and that being Saquon?
Okay, so last time the Giants played Dallas, I don't know if you guys remember week 1, the absolute just massacre that they put on the Giants. Saquon got 51 yards, and if I did my math right, that was 9 altogether with his receiving yards. It was 9.2 points in a full PPR format. Okay, no. So, I mean, if you have Saquon, you probably have to start him, especially with the buys this week, but you're not excited about it and you're not looking forward to it. Right now that's less than the average that, Dallas gives up to running backs, but I don't expect a good day from anybody. And I just real quick, cause we haven't talked about this, there's really not reason to on a fantasy show, but, I wanted to shout out to Diana Rossini from ESPN. The funniest tweet that I saw about Tommy DeVito this week was in response to somebody saying, oh, Italian man lives at home with his parents, and she responds with, "That's why I didn't get married until I was 37." And that just cracked me up. I thought it was so funny. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Something a little funny to take away from this game, but there's not going to be much to laugh about.
Oh, there's probably going to be a bunch to laugh about, but it's not going to be. Yeah. Nate, again, same type of question. Jonathan brought it up. Is it going to be as ugly on the defensive side as it is going to be for the offensive side as far as fantasy points?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, it's not going to be ugly for the. I think there's case to be made from an IDP standpoint that Dallas's front four, maybe 3 of the 4 guys there, Micah Parsons should have an absolute killer week, as well as DeMarcus Lawrence, who's one of my starts of the week, and then Osa Odigizua is another one who I love that matchup in the interior against that depleted Giants. I think DeVito's going to be he's probably going to hold the ball too long. Will we see another Deron Bland pick 6? I wouldn't bet on that, but I wouldn't want to bet against it, because if there's an opportunity. And at linebacker, one of the biggest name jump that we've seen, if you get a chance to watch any of this game, or if you have to because it's the only game on and someone's forcing you're like in a Saw movie and they're making you watch this game, only the Giants offense though, and you get to watch Marquise Bell, at least you get to see that. He's a converted safety, really good linebacker now, just a great playmaker. He's all over the field, hits hard, he's fun to watch, and Damone Clark is one of my favorites, so both of those two in play. On the Giants side, they should be on the field a lot, so Bobby Okereke is one that I like. I don't really care for the pass rushers too much in this game. I don't see Dallas needing to pass the ball all that much. I think they might, but I think that we'll see Bobby Okereke. Xavier McKinney should be in plenty of snaps, probably 70 plus snaps on the day. So I think those two are good plays if you're looking for the Giants side of the ball.
Jonathan, quick, completely off of fantasy football, but y'all drive on the wrong side of the road. I've got the game on, and y'all even do the wave backwards. The wave is supposed to go clockwise. Y'all are doing it counterclockwise. Y'all are doing everything backwards over there.
Germany. That is Germany. So I cannot speak for my German friends.
Dave, is this a week where you're going to sit there and you are going to play Tony Pollard because of this Giants D?
I mean, you probably are. He's your likely first rounder or extremely early second rounder if you were lucky enough to get him there. But I don't know. Is he impressing anyone?
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, because he has not been as impressive as we hoped he was going to be. He's, I think there was, Zeke was a bigger help to that offense when it comes to the running game than without Zeke there. Pollard, I just don't feel like is the dominant back that they thought he was going to be. But that's why I'm asking the question: is he's been so mid as a RB? Is this the week where you can actually punch him into your lineup and go, okay, I feel way more comfortable than him getting me 9-10 points. Now he can get you more.
If you have better options, I'm definitely taking it, but chances are you likely don't, unless you're playing in an 8-man league or something like that. I mean, I think Pollard needs that bruising back, like you said, like Zeke. It was like back in the day when Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman were two running back ones. And the reason is that Coleman did the dirty work and Devonta Freeman came out and he was elusive out of the backfield and what have you. And that is where Pollard really does well. But when he has to do both, he's not a one-man wrecking crew.
Stacey, anything else you want to add to this game?
Just to go along with Dave, I mean, Pollard's averaging 11.6 points per game at a half-point PPR rate. His best game was against Arizona, 122 yards. That's his only game over 100 yards rushing, and it's not even close. So it's not great. Not a ringing endorsement for your first or second round pick.
Hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1.
No bueno.
Not good for a starting running back. All right, let's move on to the last of the 4:00 games. That is Washington at Seattle. Seattle is favored by 6, over under of 44.5. Nate, lead us off with the injuries of this game.
Yeah, I want to say I just lost my sheet. Do me a favor. Start with the first.
Yeah, we can jump over to Stacey. Is there any concerns over Kenneth Walker? Look, the last 2 weeks he has had Baltimore and who else was it? It was Baltimore Cleveland. And Cleveland. Mm-hmm. 2 very, very, very good defenses.
Yeah.
However, when you look at this week, I think he's a must start when you compare. Washington gives up the 15th most points to the running back position. Are you concerned about Kenneth Walker, or is he an automatic plug-in play for you?
He's an automatic plug-in play for me for all the reasons that you just said. And I mean, I'm definitely putting him there. My beloved Zach Charbonnet hasn't really done a ton to impress this year, so not so great there. But another little bright spot, not necessarily with Kenneth Walker, but that I saw this week come out on the injury report is that Kenny McIntosh is active for this game. I don't know that really means anything other than just me being excited because he was somebody that I was really into, coming out of the draft. But as far as Ken Walker, yeah, put him in your lineups and don't worry about it.
Yeah, every time somebody says Kenny McIntosh, I go back to the video of, or was it Keith? It was Keith and Joe Matz down at the Senior Bowl, and they asked Kenny McIntosh, why did he not go to Florida? Because he was originally supposed to go to Florida, and he looks up at them dead in the face and goes, "Because I wanted to win." And he did too. Anytime Kenny McIntosh is brought up, that's the only thing that comes to mind, and it hurts my feelings every single time.
Amazing.
Jonathan, Washington is allowing the fourth most points per game to wide receivers. We know you're starting DK. We know you're starting Tyler Lockett. Is JSN a good flex this week?
Yeah, I like JSN this week. I think, especially with a number of buys you've got, he's definitely kind of his production has massively increased after that really slow start. I think it's certainly something to keep in mind with rookies. Like we've seen so many like start really hot out of the gate, to maybe be a little bit patient with a few of these players, that they're not all going to kind of explode immediately. I mean, even last week against Baltimore, he was quietly actually quite productive. And I mean, a lot of that was kind of in garbage time while they were down, but it was still 7 targets, 63 yards. So yeah, I think going forward, he is a kind of solid flex play, and I think Gino is also a pretty solid streaming option as well if you're looking for someone off the waiver wire.
Another quick surprising stat for you, Dave. Sam Howell is QB6 on the year. He's also he's thrown the most passes out of every quarterback. And if you take out, what was it, week 3 at Buffalo, he would be way higher. Most of his games, and more than half of his games rather, he's finished as a QB1. With all of that, are you trusting Dotson this week?
No, because you've got Scary Terry there. I think Dotson got lucky with that touchdown last week a little bit. I mean, it was a great catch, but I just can't go in there knowing that your floor might be 0. That's the thing with Dotson. That's where his floor is. So yeah, for me, it's a no.
All right, Nate, give us the IDP side of this game.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier with Sam Howell, he is they do pass the most. He also is sacked the most too, and so that does set up for the pass rushers for Seattle. Boye Mafe is looking to extend his sack streak to 7 games. The recent addition of Leonard Williams from the Giants could be in for his first decent play. Oh, his first. That's not fair. It looks like he can make an impact this week compared to last week. The linebackers, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner. I actually flip them. I think I have Jordan Brooks 1 or 2 spots ahead of Bobby Wagner this week, which just means play both of them if you have that chance. It's the secondary that really is intriguing, because that's where I'm dropping like Terry McLaurin and Dotson. Like McLaurin, I think I have as a wide receiver 3 this week, just because of this matchup. Trey Brown, Tariq Woolen, both are good on the outside. It's the Jamal Adams reemergence. He's playing in the box. He's an IDP must start. And then Devin Witherspoon is making a case. I mean, defensive rookie of the year could be within his sights. He's in nickel in that slot. I think he's going to really wreak havoc and blitzes on against Washington, and really could. I mean, he could finish as a DB1 this week. It wouldn't shock me at all. Now, on the Washington side, I can save my breath because there's not much. You maybe start one of the interior defensive linemen in Deron Payne or Jonathan Allen. Probably not. Maybe in defensive tackle leagues you have to. At linebacker, Jamin Davis has played well. Jamin Davis is going to be a start, especially against a higher-powered Seattle offense. And Cameron Curl. Outside of that, it's nothing else.
Well, Curtis Samuel he's still got the questionable tag, but it looks like he's probably going to start. Mm-hmm. Even though he's got one of those toe things that you and Kerry were talking about.
Yeah.
With the
lucky to be alive.
Right, probably. But you said you dropped down Terry, you dropped down Dotson. Are you also dropping Curtis Samuel because of the injury? He missed last week, of course, but where do you have Samuel? Is he a flex play for you?
No, not this week.
Okay. Anything else you want to add to this game, Stacy?
Just with Dotson, I mean, he was like, I think this is going to be the hill that I die on this year is Dotson. He's one of my favorite guys coming in, I don't know. I don't know that I'm ready to give up on him yet this week. I think I've seen flashes. He's very talented. I think that says a lot. He's had increased targets the last 2 games. I hope that it continues. I do have to play him in a couple of leagues. It's not great. I don't know. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping real hard that this isn't just kind of a flash in the pan while Samuel's out. Was out.
Dave, anything for you to add on to Washington, Seattle?
No, not expecting too much out of that.
then we shall end the 4 o'clock games there. It's been a great 3 hours. We have 2 more games left. The Sunday night game is the Jets at Vegas. Vegas favored by 1, over under of 36. Great matchup on paper for both running backs. Vegas allows the 4th most points to running backs, and the Jets allow the 7th most. So plug in Breece Hall, plug in Josh Jacobs. Nobody else is worth playing. Is that right, Nate?
I mean, yeah.
What do we got for injuries in this game?
Luckily on the Jets side, really nothing. They've been, aside from the obvious injuries that they've had previous weeks, but they're decently good to go. Don't know if it matters or not, but time will tell. And then for the Raiders, the only person, Colton Miller, tackle, hasn't practiced all week, doubtful. So that just increases and decreases the likelihood that the Raiders can do anything offensively against this Jets D.
Oh, this game is going to be so ugly. I'm so glad they put this in prime time.
Yeah, there are times being in this time zone where I'm like really annoyed at the games that are on Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night. I'm like, oh, I don't get to watch that because it's on at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And then I see some of the primetime games. And I'm like, cool, I'll watch the highlights in the morning. Don't really care.
No, you won't.
You said highlights.
Yeah.
You said highlights as if there's multiple
low lights.
Yeah.
They're just called lights.
Right. Exactly.
Dave, what are you
One of
looking
them's
for?
flickering. It's not really
the halogen or the what? Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, was there a question?
What are you looking forward to in this game as far as fantasy goes? Anything?
Well, we saw the Jets Raiders, or are we talking about the Bills? Yeah.
No. Jets,
I need to see Devontae Adams be Devontae Adams. I mean, this is getting out of hand. Last year, regardless of whether or not Derek Carr was there, when I keep forgetting his name, the old Patriots quarterback.
Hoyer.
Hoyer.
No, not Hoyer.
Garoppolo?
Stidham. When Stidham was playing for the Raiders last year, I'm pretty sure Adams had 200-plus yard games. At least one of them had 2 touchdowns. Aiden O'Connell is a decent enough quarterback that he should be looking for his number one guy. We can't have these weeks of, Adams getting 34 yards. He's got to get peppered with 8 to 12 targets, and that's where he's going to shine. So I really want to see Devontae Adams just go off like he normally does.
He's got a run of 13 straight Sunday night games with a touchdown. Devontae Adams does. Yeah. Does that continue tonight, Stacey?
I certainly hope so. So I was just curious because I've also been very disappointed, with the usage in Devontae Adams. As I'm sure it's very well documented how frustrated he's been. But I was looking at the numbers. He still leads every other receiver on the Raiders by over 100 yards this year. He's got 573 coming in. The next closest is Jacoby Myers with 442. So it's ugly and it doesn't look great every game, but it's still piling up. He's averaging about 14 fantasy points per game. I really do hope that he gets in the end zone. I saw him and Rodgers were hanging out this week. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. Maybe Rodgers is giving him some inside intel.
Right.
Did you notice that last week prior to the Jets game that Aaron Rodgers was on the sideline throwing the football?
I did not because I was not here. So I haven't gotten to watch football in like 2 whole weeks, Gator. So I'm so excited about today. But I did see, I think it was Stefania Bell put a bold take was that Rodgers comes back this year and plays, which I love. I'm all about that. I think if anybody's going to do it, it would be him with just some sort of like crazy medical advice, listening to dolphin mating sounds or whatever.
Oh, if he comes back this year after tearing up his leg the way he did, every player in the NFL would be going and doing ayahuasca and nights dark treatments, and they'll be doing it all. Everything Aaron Rodgers does, and then they'll be like, Tom Brady did this. I know he did. It just wasn't put out there.
Can we start putting together as Fantasy and Frames just like clips of dolphin mating sounds that we can start marketing when this happens? Like that'll be like maybe a thing that we can do. What do you guys think? Jorge, can we get Jorge on here?
Jonathan,
I'm not typing that into Google. You can, but
private window, Jonathan.
By the way, guys, Bailey Zappi is in the game right now.
I just saw that.
Trying to lead the Patriots to a game-winning drive.
Zappy hour.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord, Johnny. The talking about Davante Adams, and this is, I don't want to keep harping on it, but he is wide receiver 14 on the year, and we have said multiple times he is quarterback proof. However, you look at the last 5 games, 6 games, it's not been so much that way. I know a lot of that is Jimmy G overthrowing or underthrowing, not getting him the ball. But what do you expect out of Davante Adams today with Aiden O'Connell against this Jets D?
Yeah, I think at some point, we get back to how it should be, because like Jacoby Myers has been he's been great. He's been fantasy relevant most weeks. Last week he was down, but he's been great most weeks. And so I think that balance eventually flips back to Davante Adams' favor, because he's Davante Adams. And all of the points that he was making a couple of weeks ago that were kind of like, I'm Davante Adams, you should throw me the ball, is kind of very legitimate, because we've seen how he's been the last few years. So if I have him, I'm starting him, because we know what the upside is most weeks. There will be a week in which he gets like 15, 20 targets and goes for 150 yards, and you don't want to be there. Have that week that he's on your bench, and it could be any week, even against someone like the Jets.
What's crazy is that if let's say he has a 40% target share, say some outrageous number, 40%, that would still only amount to legitimately like 7-8 targets over Aiden O'Connell's last 2 games. Because that's the problem I have with the team with such a low passing upside. He could have these astronomical where you can't ask for more. You can't ask for anything more than 40% target share. That could still amount to, like I said, maybe 8 to 10 targets, maybe 6 catches. I mean, he could turn that into 100 and a touchdown or 2 really easily. We know that. But this against Sauce or DJ Reed and this pass rush that they're going to have, I had to move, and this hurts. And this is probably not even far enough in reality for where he will end up. But I have him as like my wide receiver 15, 16. And I think there's a case that it's a 5 for 65 game, and people are should be actually happy about that by comparison to what the numbers will say he should get against, or receivers should have against the Jets in this situation.
Yeah,
I know.
It's an ugly. Let's move on to the Monday night game. Denver at Buffalo. Buffalo favored by 7. 46.5 is the over under. Diggs is off the injury report, but Nate, who's still on it?
Well, let's go to the Denver side. Guess what? Nobody, which is always which is a nice thing to hear. On the Buffalo side, though, it's one person and one person only that I know of guaranteed is out, and that's Micah Hyde. Everybody else Christian Benford, who's a corner depth piece, nothing, but a relatively healthy game. So there we go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm watching the last play, and Bailey Zappi just throws an interception with 30 seconds to go and ends the ball game. Colts win.
He did the fake Dan Marino.
Yeah, the fake spike and throws it across the middle in coverage. But yeah, anyway.
That's brutal. I had a DeMario Douglas touchdown in a parlay there that I needed, and that was the only thing left I needed.
Johnny, the double-digit points, PPR points for Dalton Kincaid in each of the last 3 games. Can he be trusted as a tight end 1 going forward with all of the other weapons on this Buffalo team?
I think so. I mean, look, with rookie tight ends, you're always kind of going to get those spike weeks and those peaks and troughs. But I think I trust Kincaid going forward. He's because he's seeing the targets, he's turning that into production. I think, especially the way that the tight end landscape is, I think you have to trust him going forward.
Dave, we talked about the teams that are on bye with Miami, Miami, the Eagles, the Rams, and of course Kansas City. James Cook is under 10 PPR points in the last 5 games. Is he still a flex play because of the bye weeks?
I would prefer not. Like I would rather, for example, a Trey McBride or a James Conner, or if you got other options like that, I would take it. He's a talented running back. He's just not getting the usage. You got Latavius Murray stealing the goal line work. Like I said, we don't know if Philando Fournette's been activated or not. I'd say they're going to mix him in a little bit. He's just not getting the touches. If you're getting 10 or less touches, you can't really expect running back 1 or even running back 2 numbers out of them, right?
It's fair. Nate, anything to add to either one of those? Kincaid or James Cook there?
I mean, that's the thing. It's been a downward cycle. I just have a hard time trusting Cook outside of the, and that's the one thing I have a question about is the receiving work. Will they trust straight to Fournette? I have my reservations about Fournette being heavily involved in the offense. I know that they brought him in for a reason, but why didn't anybody else bring him in for 9 weeks? What did Buffalo see that others didn't, or is it something that Buffalo sees internally that they just needed another piece there? But yeah, I'm fine with Kincaid, but that's not so much on James Cook has me worried, I will say.
Stacey, Javonte Williams, 30 touches, 27 carries last week, but 30 overall touches 2 weeks ago prior to their bye. Is there any chance he repeats that performance?
I mean, because I haven't been the biggest Javonte Williams fan this season. I just don't like running backs coming off of a year when they've been hurt, especially with the knee injury that he had. And I'm glad that he's back and playing, but I think I'd prefer Javonte Williams next season. I mean, he had 27, attempts. That's by far the most that he's had. The next highest would be 15 against Green Bay the week before. I don't know. I kind of seem to think that might be a little bit of an outlier. I don't know that he repeats that this week. And even so, I mean, he's still only averaging around 11 or so points a game in a PPR format. So, I mean, bye weeks, everything, I guess maybe you have to start him. But I'm not doing it with a happy face on.
Nate, you want to go over the IDP for Denver and Buffalo combined here?
Sure. Yeah. With the Broncos, their pass rush is a kind of an eclectic mix of a number of different that you may want to start. Nick Benito's had some weeks here and there. Jonathan Cooper's had some weeks, Baron Browning, but all are kind of those plug and play, and the matchup isn't ideal. The Bills can allow some sacks, but for the most part, I don't think I want to trust too many of them. I do want to say Alex Singleton and Josie Jewell are both good starts. I like that against a Buffalo offense that does do decently well for the linebacker. And then in the secondary, I gotta say, there's not much back there that I'm really happy. Justin Simmons is a potential, but again, he keeps creeping down my my IDP defensive back list. And then the hell's Denver playing? What am I doing here? Buffalo. Good Lord. I swear it's been a hell of a morning. The pass rush there, though, I do like Gregory Rousseau in this matchup. I think that Denver does allow more sacks than what it would appear. The name to pay attention to is Terrell Bernard. He was in concussion protocol. I haven't seen if he's been released yet. If that's the case, Tyrell Dodson does take a step forward, but so does Dorian Williams. He comes in, and then Jordan Poyer is probably going to be relied upon, but he's been banged up too. So that's something to pay attention to, is his health. Outside of that, I think that might be it, guys.
We've gone over about 20 minutes or so, but I want to give each of you, go around the frames real quick. Start with you, Dave. Anything you want to add to any one of these games, Denver, Buffalo, or any of the earlier games we talked about that has come out news-wise or anything like that that you have noticed?
If you have Sam Laporta on your team name should be called Laporta Potty.
Yes.
I want to add that.
I don't even know what to say now, Nate. I mean, what are we doing?
You said you want to add something. I feel like it's a valuable contribution.
That was very, very valuable. Along with the, peanut butter and jelly take, along with the, pumpkin pie take, baked beans with tomatoes.
Yeah.
Jonathan, the floor is yours.
I've got nothing at that level I've got nothing else.
We don't even need outro music. It's just in the show, right? Stacey, anything to add to any of these games?
Oh my gosh. No, but I'm just really excited for that Cincy Houston game. I can't wait. I think that's going to be a blast to watch.
Nate, any IDP stuff or offensive stuff from you on any of these games today?
No, I think we covered everything, man.
All right, make sure you go check out Dave over there on Twitter at ConnectGo. Jonathan, I'm going to butcher the last name, but it's his. Say it for me.
Klonovsky.
I say it one more time.
Klonovsky.
Okay, there we go. Stacey Perez, Nate Markham. Make sure you're checking out Fantasy in Frames on the website there. You can see all of the rankings. If you have any other questions, hit Nate up in the DMs. You can hit my DMs. They're always open. For everybody on the show, everybody at Fantasy and Frames, it's been fun yet again, and we'll be back and doing it next week.